Must be in high school?
Super duper.
Oh, must be in high school.
Oh, yeah, the other one's in the middle school.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School Board's meeting for Thursday, November 21st, 2019. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our troops that put themselves in harm's way. Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if you could take the roll call vote, Mrs. Belcher.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's. Sarah Mockamer.
Here.
Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage. Sue Sherman.
Here.
Jennifer Silva. Also seated at the board table this evening are Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, and Student Representative Kyle Duffy. The presence of other district administrators as well as Timberlane Teacher Association officers will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Okay, if we can move on to our first item, which is the approval of the minutes for November 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 7th meeting minutes.
Welcome.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Did
Yep.
someone second?
Is there a second?
That's what I thought.
Okay. Seconded by Lee. Bells me one more time. Now I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 0. Passes. Thank you.
We have one set of non-public that are going around the table as well.
Oh.
Sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes of November 7th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
We didn't seal these? I didn't begin them.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And all those abstain?
6-0.
6-0.
Thank you.
These aren't sealed, right?
They are not sealed.
So we don't have to pass them back.
Oh, all right. There we go. Mr. Duffy.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
good to be back. So I'm going to start off with Atkinson Academy tonight. The children in grades 2 through 5, they have their lip sync on Friday night at the PAC. That's always an exciting time. I believe it usually starts at 6 or 6:30, if I recall correctly. At Danville Elementary, they had a Title I open house where they had a literary specialist, the Title I teacher, and their assistant principal, where they invited students' parents to an informational open house. They taught parents how to interactively read with their children and find a just right book so we can make sure we're educating our children correctly at school and at home. Pollard School had a visit from French students from the high school where they learned a bit of French and did some French activities, and it's good to see that inter-district connectivity, so that's very exciting. Moving on to Sandown North, they held their Scholastic Book Fair fundraiser a few weeks back, and now they have 2 author visits in November. Marty Kelly, he is an illustrator and has written quite a few books, and Rob Boya, another popular author that will get to speak with the students grades 1 through 3 and 4 and 5. On to Sandown Central, on November 26th, they're holding their Grandparents and Special Guest Day, where they invite different family members that they would like, and the children lead them in partaking in arts, crafts, and singing. Up at the middle school, one of our 8th grade teams had a Portsmouth scavenger hunt experience where they looked through its rich colonial history with hands-on and eyes-on involvement, and it fostered their skills of teamwork and collaboration, so that sounded like a really awesome time. And on the high school, congratulations, as from my understanding, we were accredited to continue being a high school that a diploma that's respected. And after many working parts of the students, the teachers, the administration, the board, the SAU, I'm very glad that we got through that process successfully over the past few days. And as usual with a high school, I have quite a few dates to throw at you all tonight. We have November 22nd, the Best Buddies Pizza and Karaoke Night at 5 p.m. in the high school caf. On November 23rd, there's the Craft and Vendor Fair, a very big event to raise funds for Mealy's Meals at the high school from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's loads of variety of things that you can buy and purchase there, get on those Christmas gifts early. On December 7th, there's the Junior Semi at the high school caf and gym from 6 to 10 p.m. And this week and in the following weeks, winter sports are starting up, so keep your eyes on that. And over the next few weeks, we have the student holiday concerts from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school. You can go on the Performing Arts Center's website to check out all of those dates. And to conclude my report tonight, I'd just like to say that recently there's been a discussion to change graduation gowns to just maroon for seniors in the high school in order to support a more inclusive graduation for all students at Timberlane. Previously, the gowns had been assigned to students based on gender. Girls wore white, and maroon was for boys. A majority of students that I and other student leaders have spoken to are in favor of having both white and maroon gowns for each student to choose from individually. This would both be inclusive and give a nod to the tradition of Timberlane that we all look for. I believe it to be my duty as the elected representative of the student body to report on this public opinion. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our delegates and individuals. We have 2 for this evening. We have Brianna Biros.
Yep. Did you want me to come up now?
Yep, come on up.
I have a copy of what I'm going to read out loud. Dr. Metzler and Mr. Woodworth have a copy of the petition with all of the names. I'll explain that in a minute. Do you want us to start reading, or do you want to wait?
You can go ahead.
Good evening, members of the board. A traditionalist is one who advocates to maintain tradition, and that is what I am trying to do. I have come today to ask the board to consider amending their graduation policy to stick with the traditional 2-color option of burgundy and white caps and gowns and allow the choice of color. I understand only senior students were given a ballot to choose from, but that white has been excluded from that choice. Many students expressed discontent in this decision, and that is how it came to me. I was also outraged at the idea of another added expense for my child. However, the administration has stated they would accommodate her fitting, and I am truly grateful for that. So the argument goes back to tradition and preference. The two colors have been around for decades, if not longer. My understanding is the school took gender completely out of the equation 3 years ago. Students are given an online form to choose their color. I had suggested at my meeting with Mr. Woodworth and Ms. Mangini to add a confirmation pop-up to the order form so the student can see the color they have chosen before submitting. This would help to eliminate the room for error. The color preference doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with gender. It could be, as one person told me, they hate white, or it clashes with their outfit choice. Color preference could be because it's easier to see cap decorations on a white cap, so they want the all-white. Their parents, siblings, or cousins wore that color years ago, and in keeping with tradition, would like to be the same. The students are not asking to wear a color that is not already part of tradition, just to keep what we've always had, a choice, an inclusive choice by allowing the option for either color. Some have stated they should have just been happy they are graduating. That to me is an accomplishment that students work very hard to achieve. So it is not a matter of just being thankful for that. I have been told that Pinkerton recently changed to all red. Are we playing follow the leader, or are we going to consider the feelings of all of our students and make a conscious, unbiased opinion and vote for everyone involved? I have brought a printed copy of the petition that was created to save the traditional two colors, as well as the comments that were posted. There are, at 1:30 this afternoon, 676 signatures, and more are added every day. There are many students and parents from our district on here, so even though they may not be as vocal as me, by signing this, they are clearly stating they have a similar opinion and want their voice heard. I have also brought a copy of a letter I was given by a parent from Little People of America when my daughter was born with a difference. This is a great piece to help parents struggling with change on the road to accepting difference. I'm happy to read it, but it will take me over my time. It is called Welcome to Holland. I can also get information on harbor camps in New Hampshire at an undisclosed location. They run a camp called Camp Aeronautic. It runs about 2 to 3 weeks in the summer for transgender individuals to meet and forge strong bonds with those who are, like them, navigating an often difficult journey. They also have a camp for little people, and my daughter has attended for many years. I know the staff and the camp, and I highly recommend them.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you. I know this issue just sort of popped on up. I just became aware of it this past week. So, Mr. Duffy, if you could elaborate, and not to put you on the spot, but your survey, is it the two white, the white and the maroon gowns?
What, can you clarify your question?
He's asking about you were given 4 options, not 2, and none of them included
So,
white.
if you were asking about the survey that was sent out to us about a week ago, it was 4 different variations of a gown with a primary color of maroon and some accents and/or stoles.
But the gowns that were, let's say, what were used last year, the solid maroon and the solid white, were those 2 choices that were offered?
No, not on this survey.
No, they were all maroon. There
They
were all
were
shades
all
of maroon.
maroon
There was
on
no
the survey
white
that we received.
offered. When does the decision on gowns have to be made to order them?
We're aiming to try to get done by the 15th of December.
So there's time to have this, an executive summary or something brought before the next board meeting? I think,
There is an article in the Union Leader that states that deadline, as well as has the pictures of the 4 options.
Do you
It's in
think-
today's paper.
Okay. The board's purview to put this on our agenda for next
No.
meeting?
I don't think this is a school board decision. I think this is a high school decision. That's my personal opinion. I think the students and the staff at the high school, and I appreciate the parents, but it shouldn't be school board members deciding on the color.
What if a parent decides to say, you know what, I'll buy my own gown, I'm gonna buy white, and my child's gonna come in and where they wanna be at neon green?
Again, it's not a decision we should be making. It should be the high school staff and students and
What-
parents. Not a school board.
I don't disagree with you, but could we get an executive summary on the rationale? Because I'm not understanding the rationale. That's all I want to know.
For what purpose?
I want to understand the rationale behind the change, unless somebody can tell me right now.
I don't need an executive summary.
Dr. Metzler?
And we certainly could pull together an executive summary. You know, the high school brought this superintendent's leadership team, so we could put something together. The other part, though, just to clarify yours, you know, participation in graduation is not a right, it's a privilege. So if you showed up in some sort of outfit that was not approved, you would not be part of that ceremony. It's a privilege, not a right. That's a little different. But in terms of an executive summary about the rationale, we can put something together with the principal's leadership team at the high school and have that for you on December 5th.
Well, let's, you know, I mean, I just brought up the neon green to extenuate my point. What if a student brought in their older sister who graduated their white gown and wore that because they wanted to do that? I mean, are we going to object to something that was previously the previous year?
Or again, whatever the regulations, whatever the rules, whatever they set up for their ceremony, if you went outside of those rules, you would not be participating. It's a privilege, not a right to participate in a ceremony.
I know you guys are talking about this, but you actually have a student, the person behind me on that list that's gonna talk about the same topic, so
Okay.
I don't know if you wanna listen to him before you
They'll
converse.
be next, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one is Mr. Eli Duff.
Hello.
Well,
I'm the class president for the senior class. And again, the same topic. So again, a few weeks back, we had the polls come out, and it had shocked a lot of students, the majority of our grade. And I was also surprised by this because, again, we were going by, you know, white and maroon constantly from year after year. And finally, this abrupt change. So we got to talking with our leaders, our student council leaders, and a lot of them came up to me and the student council president talking about, you know, what has happened. And so we're striving for this to be a student approval as well. You know, not just going on about the change, but having it to be a student approval, talking with the students, talking with the teachers, and having them work together about it. Not just the teachers, because the students want to step forward and talk, you know, what's passionate for them. Because they've been working, they've been planning, and they've been looking forward to graduation. And with this abrupt change, it just seems a little unfair. And it seems like that we don't really have a say in that. And so I'm feeling very respected to collaborate and compromise with teachers on some sort of change, whether that's we stick with the gown that we've picked for this year and have a white option with that, and we find a solution that works for the majority, because there's always going to be people that still aren't satisfied with the solution. And again, just opening it up to not just the senior class, but the school. Because this, you know, every other class is going to graduate, and they want to have a say in what they're going to wear for their graduation. So I give my whole heart to the inclusion and student voices as well. So, yeah, that's all.
thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our first agenda item is the Education Weekly Essay Contest winners.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay, this is our 8th annual American Education Week celebration, and first I'd like to thank the principals and certainly teachers and all the students that participated in our 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 10th grades across the district. There was a tremendous amount of quality, and we go through a pretty rigorous exercise to get to to celebrate the champions that we have tonight that you're going to get a chance to hear from in just a couple of minutes. So again, I'd like to congratulate everybody and thank everybody for their participation. So we look at great public schools, a basic right and our responsibility. And so in recognition of American Education Week, students were asked to write an essay in 500 words or less on the following. And so I'll read the topic before we call up our winner from each grade. And it's on reach, educate, and inspire. So at grade 2, they were asked to name and describe someone at school, an adult or a student, who makes a positive difference in your day. So I'd like to call up Charlotte Stricker and her supportive Principal Deotis, and she's going to share her essay with us. So welcome, Charlotte, and thank you for being here.
My name is Charlotte, and I have 3 sisters. I love playing soccer and softball. I am in 2nd grade. The person I am writing about is Lily. Lily has very dark brown hair, and she colored the tips of her hair blue. Lily also has brown eyes. Lily became my friend on the first day of kindergarten. I was so scared to go on the bus for the first time. It was Lily's first time on the bus, too. Lily held my hand while we walked on the bus. She played with me the whole day at school. Since then, she has been my best friend. Whenever Lily sees me outside, she always asks if I can come over to her house. Every time she asks if I can come over, our moms say yes. And Lily always lets me pick out the first game. So every day I look forward to going over to Lily's house. Lily and me always get disappointed that we haven't got in the same class since kindergarten. But we always goof around and make it funny. So that is another fun thing we do together. That is how Lily makes a positive difference in my day.
Very good.
Nicely done.
Great job.
Great job. Congratulations.
Yep. Get it. Let Mom.
Oh, but, yeah, mine. Oh, I'm gonna get a picture. Thank you.
Dean, can we get a picture with Mom?
All right.
Well, with
Dad.
I know, right?
Is Lily here?
I know, right?
Wait a minute, you gotta get the other two, you gotta get all of them.
You're the half of the room.
You gotta get the whole family in.
All right, now grandparents, now.
Is Lily here with you?
No, Lily's not here. She's at home watching it, I think.
She must be very proud of her friend.
Well, I feel bad for the next person that has to follow Charlotte, but somebody has to. So in grade 5, we were asked to write about someone at school, an adult or a student who inspires you. Explain how this person makes a difference in your school. So I'd like to welcome up Gavin Cudmore in grade 5, and with Principal Blay, right?
Well, his teacher's going to go up.
Oh,
Mrs. Rice
oh,
is
great.
the chef.
There are many inspirations in my life, but one of them in school is very important to me. This person is Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown is a very nice teacher that is not too strict, but he is not too silly. Those are the kind of teachers I like. Mr. Brown is a kind, funny, helpful teacher that one day I hope to be just like him as an adult. I met him in the hall on the first day of school. Then he came in the class to help out. In the hall I could tell he was a nice guy. The reasons why I think this way about him is because I know I can count on him when I need help. He is not one of those people that smiles in front of the children and then when he turns away, he stops smiling. No, he is the complete opposite. He looks at you smiling and he turns away smiling. That lets you know he cares. I, on the other hand, am not the best at math, so when I need help on a tough subject, I don't need to get upset. You know why? It's because I knew I could count on him. So I calm my mind and turn around to talk with him. I see him helping kids, thinking that they would probably be feeling great knowing they can count on somebody too. I walk over, I say, Mr. Brown, I need help on a math problem in the book. So he finishes with another classmate and comes over. He says, "Hey, what you need help with?" I point to the problem with my pencil and he looks at it long and hard. He starts to explain. "So you cross out the 7 and make it a 6, so what do you do now?" He asks. I answer. He explains the rest and he tells me to try on my own now. I get it right. I realize my correct answer must have involved his help. Remember I said about him not being too silly but not too strict? What I mean is if he lets it slide if you talk for a second, but if you keep chitter-chattering for minutes, he will make sure you stop, but in a calm way. This is one of the top reasons I am writing about him. When it is a reasonable moment, he will let you talk, but during math, if you talk, he won't flip out. He will just give you the shush sign. Then you know he is just giving you a simple warning. I like when we stare at each other for a long time. It is sort of a game, but we never mention it and why we do it. If I do it at the wrong time and at the wrong place, he will point to the teacher as a warning to pay attention, but again, it is a calm, simple warning. Here is another reason why he helps or inspires me. So I say I am tired or not feeling good, he starts up a round of the staring game. It tends to make me laugh and starts to make me feel a bit better, so I think he might know a thing or two about making their day better for some people. It feels really nice when you feel down, but you know there is someone there for you. That person is Mr. Brown. So now you know what I am talking about now because you have read a little more about who Mr. Brown is. So he is a big inspiration in school because he knows how to be respectful and kind to others. So when I am an adult, I want to be like him because I want to be respectful, kind, honest, and open-minded to any ideas and ready to help. Mr. Brown is all of those things. Those are the reasons why Mr. Brown inspires me in school.
All right.
Well done, Gavin. Well done.
Buddy, nice job.
Thank you.
Nice job. Nice job.
And then we'll get your family up here.
That's enough of us.
Yeah, get your family. Good job.
Okay, next we're moving on to grade 7, and the topic was who in your school inspires you to reach for your goals, and how does this person make a difference in your school community? And I'd like to welcome up Madison McFadden from grade 7, and accompanied by Dan Woodworth.
There are many people in my school life who have inspired me to do great things. My teachers have inspired me to go to college. The happy janitors inspire me to keep on smiling no matter where you are or what you're doing. Even the lunch ladies inspire me to make some great food. But there's one person who really has inspired me to go far and reach for the stars, and that person is Mrs. Leonard. Now, you may be wondering why, so let me show you. My whole life, I told people I wanted to be a doctor or an engineer, just to be a people pleaser. I had always wanted to be a math teacher, though, but I just never said anything about it. I always thought to myself that nobody liked math, so I would never make any students happy by teaching them it. Even I didn't have fun in math. I was good at it, and it always came easy to me, but I just didn't really have fun while doing it. So walking into 7th grade, I thought this was going to be the worst year of my life when it comes to math. I mean, I was in pre-algebra after all. I knew I would have trouble getting some of the material, but I also knew I would have to suck it up. I knew I could ask for help, but I was just worried that they would take me out of pre-algebra. Eventually I learned that is not how it works, but that is not the point. But the class and the teacher had surprised me. Within the first week of school, we had learned a whole new topic and I had aced it. And for the first time in my life, I had fun while doing it. Not only did I have fun, but my classmates did too. I was so astonished how a teacher could teach a lesson so fast and so rigorously and still have everybody ace the test and have fun. I was blown away. Right then and there, I knew I wanted to be a math teacher and be like Mrs. Leonard. Now, of course, I want to have my own tricks and skills, but I had never met a math teacher, never mind pre-algebra, who could fit that much work in and still make us have fun. That inspired me tremendously to become a math teacher or a college professor, maybe. So, as you can see, Mrs. Leonard inspires me to become a teacher and to make a change. Even if I had not met a fun math teacher like her, I could have been the first really fun one. I did not realize it when I was a little kid, but she was the one who made me realize it. I would now like you to think about who inspires you to reach for the stars. Who makes you want to go far?
Everyone to come sit next to you tonight.
No, I'm on an island. He likes the dolphins too, by the way.
This has to get printed.
Three other people signed it for me. I figure I'm good.
Why don't you just get a file on it? I hate to waste all this.
Don't ask, just do. So finally, in grade 10, our topic is, what does it mean to be inspirational to others? How can you inspire others to make a difference in your school community? So it's with great pleasure, I'd like to welcome up Lauren Hills. Want to introduce your guest? One of our best, right? Always at the top 10 dinner, right?
Good students.
Inspiration. An inspiring and animating action of influence. There's the definition of a word that many use on a daily basis. But what does it mean exactly? One can't simply say that one specific thing is inspirational. Something that is inspiring is different for all. A person could consider a race car driver as someone inspiring for their bravery and determination, while another person could consider a world leader, someone like Mother Teresa, as someone inspiring for their grace and benevolence. Inspiration is an ever-changing word. It always possesses new meanings to all. Inspiring others could be considered an easy or difficult task. There's no rubric to be considered inspirational. In our daily lives at school, our assignments are always based off of a planned rubric. Rubrics that tell us what to do to achieve that A+ that we all desire so much. They help shape our academic lives by making us go on the right path to achieve success. When facing reality, though, we have no rubric to guide us into making a righteous life. There's no set-in-stone rules to shape us into an inspirational figure. That's when morals come into play in our lives. They're defined as relating to or concerned with the principles of rules of right conduct or the distinction between right and wrong. Ethical. These compasses help to guide us into a good life, a life that one can be proud of living. Most of the time, the people who are considered inspirational have a set construction of good moral values. Values that make them popular or well-known in the public eye, that make these figures considered inspirational or people to look up to. To be inspiring is possible when one completes an act that someone else wanted to do but couldn't do out of fright. This means that other people look up to people who take a step that is out of the normal. That someone has the courage to do something that is usually spoken out against. For instance, women would not have gone anywhere without inspirational women figures such as Rosa Parks, Malala Yousafzai, Susan B. Anthony, and so many more. These women inspired movements that contributed to race equality, education for women, and the ability for women to have a voice. While other women may have had these ideas, the ones who didn't speak out are not given the credit. The ones who made the stand inspired others to join and created landslides of improvements to our world. Looking on a broad scale in a typical high school world will always present problems that can be worked on. Most high school students do not make a stand in the face of these problems, mainly because they have the mentality that their words can't make a difference on a large scale. What most students don't realize, though, is that their words can start a chain reaction that can bring change to all. That one person standing up and speaking has the ability to inspire others around them to help encourage a better life. The capability to inspire in our own high school community is not necessarily a hard task, but more commonly considered a frightening one. It's not often that people, let alone high school students, stand up to a higher power to make a change. Most stay scared and accept their fate of the normal. My words or actions could be the start of a wonderful new beginning that can inspire hundreds across the board, or my doings could get lost in the crowd of chaos. Whether I persist with my actions for change or I quit can be the determiner of my level of inspiration to others in my community. Making a good change on a large or small scale is something that all should strive for in their lifetime, whether that be standing up to that higher power and making a change for the betterment of all, or simply having kind actions that make someone's day. Small inspirations can pile up and create you into a figure that many look up to and aspire to be in their future. You can make a change in your high school community because everyone has a voice. Even if that voice is big or small, it still has a presence and the ability to make a change. Using that ability can make immense changes that can last a lifetime and potentially inspire others to create an even bigger transformation for future generations. To inspire is to be yourself, to be able to stand up for what you strongly believe in, to be able to accept defeat and rise up from it, to be strong. All have the tools to inspiration, but many don't take advantage of it. Will you take your intelligence and what you believe in and make a change?
Well done.
Just wrap it up quick. So this concludes our celebration of American Education Week, and as I visited classrooms, many of the children were going through, as we approach Thanksgiving, exercises or things to show what they're thankful for. And I have to say, the adults can have that same kind of exercise, right? So all of us, Mr. Devaney and everybody, we're very thankful for the parents that we have and the great kids that you send us. So Charlotte and Gavin, Madison, and Laura, just prime examples of the great kids we have in our district. So again, thank you, and we appreciate it. And again, congratulations. They were all wonderful essays, and we really appreciate you sharing them with us tonight. So thank you.
Before you go, if I could have just some signatures of the recipients or their parents, please. We're going to recess just for a couple minutes, yes?
Correct.
Thank you. We have a new audit rule that says when we give you gift cards, you have to sign for them. Isn't she adorable? Look at 4 girls.
Okay, now we resume our
Oh, no, 3 boys.
program
Three
here.
girls and a boy.
Oh, here it
Next
goes.
one is Program of Studies, first read.
Oh, no, I was talking about.
Is that where they're putting that?
Hello.
Good evening. Mark Pedersen, Director of Secondary Curriculum. So tonight I present to you the first read of the Program of Studies. I believe you all have a copy of it.
Yep.
And I don't know if you got a copy of a sort of a one-pager that
did?
highlights the
The
changes. I don't know if you'd like me to go through these changes like line by line as I read through them, or if you have questions. I don't know, what's your preference?
Why don't you walk us through it?
Okay,
What
sure.
changed to it?
I mean, this is just sort of changes that I make from, or that, that gets made year to year. Page 5, we highlight the student artwork, the cover of the design, or the cover of the program of studies was designed by Jack Keogh, class of 2020 in the graphic designs class. On page 10, there's some changes to the dual enrollment early college credit wording in the paragraph to add some more descriptors. And then we're gonna take this department by department. So in art, on page 31, you'll see a reorganization of the levels at the different courses. That's just mainly what levels kids are taking those courses at. You know, if they take, you know, level 1 to then take a level 2 to take a level 3. Some that were level 3 went down to level 2, and level 4 to level 3, just to give more opportunities for kids to be taking classes. All art classes added, or in the prerequisite wording, they eliminated the or department approval and or to include foundations of art. And then page 21 and 32, advanced drawing changed its name to just drawing. In the business department, entrepreneurship and sports and entertainment management added a prerequisite, successful completion of introduction to business principles. In the English and out of the world language department, we revised the descriptor for graphic novel as literature. And then we made a move to move a class out of, say, where it was in the world language area of the program of studies and put it into the English area of the program of studies. It doesn't change the credit bearing of it. It doesn't change what it means. It just simply where it's housed. It did change the name, Mythology in the Classical World. We revised the description of it, but it doesn't change the curriculum of that class. Out of the Family and Consumer Science section, there were some name changes. Child Development, Ages and Stages, changed the name to just Child Development. Childcare, Gourmet Foods, and Baking and Pastries, removed the or department approval from the prerequisite wording. And finally, Gourmet Foods and Baking and Pastries changed from being offered to grades 10 through 12 to just being offered to grades 11 through 12. Music, jazz band, CCP has finally been removed. This actually got removed a couple years ago and just like a bad whatever just keeps on coming back somehow. So I removed it again. We'll see if next year it makes its way back. And then the next sections are all very similar, so I kept those all together. We looked at a number of departments, so engineering, science, and social studies in particular. We looked at ways that we can alternate these course offerings. So not all courses are offered every year, and we put some of these courses on a rotating or alternating basis. We didn't do that for the 2020-2021 school year to give kids that opportunity, you know, if they were looking forward to taking a class and not pull the rug out from underneath them. But we wanted to put it in this year's to highlight that these changes are going to actually start taking place in the 2021-2022 school year. And it lays out in every place that kids are looking at these courses, it lays out that sort of alternating or repeating schedule. And so you'll see here that in the engineering department, there's a number of courses that are just alternating. And what we have, how we've defined them is the school year starting in an odd year. So 2021 school year. So the 2021-2022 school year, we calling that an odd school year since it starts in the odd school. So engineering classes, and then science classes, so marine biology and space science, zoology and oceanography, and then in social studies, alternating American values in film and music and sociology, and cultural geography and constitutional law. And another out of the social studies department is European history AP European history is now going to be offered to both juniors and seniors, 11th and 12th graders. Whereas before it was just open to 12th graders. And then the last of the changes coming out of the program of studies is in the computer science department. There's actually quite a number of changes that the computer science teacher, some of the tech teachers, myself, Tim Guanci, the dean of STEM, all looked at making. Really what it boils down to is, I don't want to say a whole change to these courses, but there's a number of courses that are being changed. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is actually, if you follow my logic here, remove 5, add 4, so a net loss of one course being offered. Revamp a number of the courses to try to encourage more kids to get into computer science, to take computer science offerings, adding an AP computer science principles course as an offering, trying to just engage more learners and bring computer science offerings into sort of the modern day. Some of our computer science classes in the past were a little antiquated, if you can say that about computer science, but they were a little bit of some of the older languages that maybe aren't being used anymore. So we feel as though the changes in the computer science department are really, going to have some positive effects on those students choosing to take those classes. As a side note, I believe I came in front of this board at one point, maybe back in September, and talked about how there might be a change at the state level where the state was going to require computer science. And what I had confirmation from the state the other day is that we have to offer 2 credits worth of computer science, but it is not a graduation requirement. So that's we by doing these changes, we ensure that we meet that state requirement of offering 2 credits. We offer more than 2 credits, but we ensure that we do.
Sue?
So I know we've certainly talked in curriculum and assessment about this alternating year process to get more kids so they could look, because we want them to look farther enough ahead, and we want parents to look farther enough ahead to understand that, we want to offer those classes, but we want the classes to be full, and not have anybody disappointed. So I think this is a good, we're going there. We're not taking anybody out this year. We're giving kids a chance. I think the computer, we'll call them revitalization of those 4 courses, making them bolder and more modern. And that's, of course, with the support of our great computer teacher, computer science teacher, has been really doing the work of getting this. I think this is great, so I'm going to move that we move to second read the program of studies.
I'll second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded. Jen?
These courses that are going to every other year, are any of them sequenced courses, meaning are
Meaning prerequisites for another course, or
Yes.
they have prerequisites?
or do they all have the same one prerequisite? So once you take that 1 or 2, whatever.
Yeah, so none of these, at one time, oceanography was a prerequisite for marine. We got rid of that, I believe, last year. So this alternating pattern is not going to affect, the courses that are every other year aren't going to affect each other. So one of them is not a prerequisite for the other.
That's what I was getting
Yeah.
at. So
none of.
how far ahead are kids going to have to plan? It's not going to impact it that greatly.
No, not by prerequisites in that regard.
And then, can I ask one more question? On the computer sciences, so we got rid of 5. What did we get rid of?
So, if I can, you want me to just read them?
State it again.
Okay.
So, Computer Concepts 1 CCP is being replaced with Introduction to Computer Science CCP. Intro to Java and Computer Concepts 2 Accelerated is being replaced with AP Computer Science Principles. Computer Concepts 1 Accelerated is being replaced with Programming in C#, and C++ Programming Accelerated is being replaced with Cybersecurity Accelerated. So that's kind of the way that we thought about the courses previously taught into what the courses that we'd like to teach, the sort of the progression of courses that we'd like to offer.
And historically, refresh my memory, Microsoft Office course, was that counting as your half-credit technology?
So, yes, that Microsoft Office Essentials does count as a digital literacy course. We have a number of courses that all count as digital literacy.
And where is that? Is that under
That's in
business?
that's run actually out of the business department.
Page 20, the list.
So you've got some things that, it kind of looks like it's overlapping, but it isn't. Some are business classes and some are computer science.
Lee?
I love that cybersecurity was added. I think that's really, really good. Why drop C++?
You know, myself, I don't know enough about all the different languages, but according to the computer science teacher, he felt as though it's one of those languages that's maybe not as prevalent or is used as much as some of the others. We've talked quite lengthily about, you know, teaching to a particular language versus teaching some of the concepts of computer science and some of the just, you know, coding, debugging, like just the mindset of a computer scientist rather than, all right, you're just going to learn this one language. You know, talking with the engineers in my engineering advisory board, you know, the guy from Raytheon says, look, we don't want people coming with any language because we're going to teach them our own unique language. So, you know, it's a great question to ask. It's just something I think had to give somewhere to ensure that some of the other courses came in, and he felt as though C++ was one of those to go.
Yeah, no, yeah. If I had to pick between C# and C++, C# is the way to go.
And he made that same decision.
Is it, do we have one teacher teaching all these courses for computer
Correct.
science?
One.
Correct. There was the state. If I can just
Go
sort of
ahead.
expand upon that, the state recently had a computer science certification. At the time of rollout, when the state did that, there were 0 people certified. The state had to sort of force a couple of people to get certified, and at that time, about 7 people across the state. And you know, our computer science teacher is going through the process to get certified, and he's one of only about 10 or 12 in the state that's in that process. So. The state did make that mandate that all high schools have to offer 2 credits of computer science. So I feel as though we're lucky to have a program like this and a computer science teacher like our teacher, whereas a lot of other schools are actually going to BLACs or the other options. So we offer something that a lot of other schools don't.
Very good. Kim?
Why are we still requiring 2 credits of PE when that's above the state requirement?
Well, I believe that is because of our policy. You know, when you read our policy, we are just meeting what that policy says about graduation requirements.
Whose policy is that? The school board policy?
School board policy. So, school board policy IKF does talk about the graduation requirements for each one of our
That was a
diploma
new-
options.
I think we did that one recently.
You did.
we? Yeah.
Did we?
Can you enlighten us to, is it still in there? For the,
No, I'm just saying it was one that came through this board to be
I didn't look at
reaffirmed.
it
Yeah.
close enough.
okay.
Was there any reason why that didn't get taken down to the 1.5 credits?
I don't think it was even talked about. I don't think we talked about it.
It's probably too late anyway.
Yeah, it's never too late. I mean,
Well, it is if they're getting ready to publish the program of studies.
Well, and it would have to go back to, it should go back to, if that's what your mandate's gonna be, which I'm not in favor of it, it would have to go back to curriculum assessment, come back up through policy, and be all reprocessed again, that we expect 2 credits of PE towards our graduation requirements.
And if I may, it also supports our strategic plan about promoting and addressing social, emotional health and well-being of our students. You know, they don't have to take 3 credits or 3 half credits of gym. They could do 2 credits of health and 2 credits of gym, but it feeds right into our strategic plan by requiring that level of credits for graduation.
And that's in the,
But
And that's right.
correct.
But a credit and a half doesn't?
I feel having a more rigorous requirement is important for the overall health and well-being of our student body, because not everybody has those opportunities. They might not be in a sport, or if they do, to get additional exercise, and if they decide to take 2 classes of health, then Health 2 is very important, I believe. Quite honestly, I wish everybody was required to take Health 2, just because of the social subjects that are discussed before students head out into the world. But I feel that it's important to support the strategic plan as it's written, and requiring a full credit of gym is important. It's important for the overall health and well-being of our students. I don't agree with removing a half credited gym.
On the other hand, you have people that are doing varsity sports that are being required to take gym, or who are dancing 5 days a week or 6 days a week. I think they're probably getting enough activity. And then it becomes onerous for them to put in courses that might be more academic in nature when they're already fulfilling their phys ed requirement outside of the school. I just don't see the rationale for having 2 credits. I could see a credit of health and a half credit of PE, but I just don't see why we're above the state requirement in this area. I'd rather go to 1.5 credits there and a half a credit of computer science.
So
you
you
don't-
have to
you don't
redo
think-
your strategic plan as well and revamp that,
No, I'm
go
not
back
saying-
through the process, go back through policy.
That doesn't, does the strategic plan say that we need 2 credits of health and PE?
Talks about the health and emotional climate. It's in the culture and climate
Culture and
section.
climate section of it.
And so a credit and a half doesn't meet that 2 credits does? Is that what the answer is?
It's not it doesn't specify gym, but I feel that it supports the overall message of what the community and the district supports as far as our students' overall health from kindergarten to grade 12. And I don't know, I am very happy that across the board, this district actually has requirements that are well above the state minimum. That sets us apart. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to require a little bit extra activity. And yes, there are absolutely students that are very involved in sports, and maybe that's something we can revisit to see if there's a compromise for students to get, credit for sports rather than reducing the requirement. I feel there's a way to compromise that doesn't make it so we are lowering our standards for graduation.
I just want to follow up on that, Jen.
So I don't think of it as a lowering of standards. Honestly, I would rather see a half credit move towards technological literacy as opposed to health and PE, because we know that graduates need to be technically literate right now. And I would think that that probably would be in the strategic plan quite strongly, is to have a 21st century learner. And as we can see in our computer science classes, and Mr. Pedersen, correct me if I'm wrong, we have very few students taking those classes. Am I incorrect?
You are not incorrect with that.
I'm sorry,
I think we do a disservice to our students by not making them ready for the technology in this that we're going to see.
Jen?
I was just gonna ask, do schools in the district, not in the district, schools in the state, do any schools in the state look at, like a sport in exchange for a gym credit?
I mean, I've heard of schools doing that. I don't know what schools are doing it off the top of my head, but
I'd just be curious what that would look like, because I do agree with Sarah that it is important, and it is part of our strategic plan and it's part of our policies that we encourage, that physical activity, but we do have quite a large number of our students who are very engaged in our athletic program, and they're very, very active. But I also agree with Kim about the computer science part of it. A half a credit just doesn't seem like enough, and not necessarily want to, add more onto somebody's plate, because they're already required to take quite a number of classes here. But
Mr. Duffy?
Yeah, if I may, to give credence to the idea of a compromise about the varsity sport or a sport in exchange for a credit, I know there's a large community of students at our school who not only play 2 or 3 seasons of sports, but they're also taking a very rigorous academic course load. So I think there's definitely a lot of credence to the idea that we need to make some sort of exchange, because students could be taking those higher level difficult courses or even a computer science course, but instead they have to be taking a physical education course when they're outside getting 2 hours of physical activity every day.
Exactly, it's opportunity cost that was just lost. Dr. Metzler?
If I could, and I tell you this from as a 3-sport varsity athlete in high school and a 2-sport athlete in college. Exchanging my experiences for my team sport with what I learned in gym, they are two entirely different things. Your team sport, you're with like-minded people. You have an opportunity in gym to learn to play a sport or participate in a game or learn things with people that you normally would not necessarily make a team or be on a team. And you learn an awful lot in phys ed class that you don't get from a varsity sport. It's just that it's apples and oranges. Those are two entirely different things. Our recommendation is the program of studies as presented. Also spent some time with NEAS, so I'd be interested in hearing from the accreditation. Were they impressed with our program of studies? Did they like it as presented? And what's your recommendation as to our program of studies?
The program of studies, my recommendation is as written. I mean, the NEAS people were very much in favor of some of those intangible pieces that we have. One of them coming out of the PE department is, unified PE, which it's not about the competition of the game. It's not about winning and losing. It's not about being on a varsity team and saying we won a state championship. It's about interacting with other humans, and doing something maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone. And if you're not familiar with what unified PE is you have in PE class two very different groups of kids. You have some kids that are, in that class who have, maybe different learning disabilities, and who struggle with sometimes basic academics and other facets of life. And you have then kids who are regular ed kids who are in that and they come out of that in a very different light. And again, it's not about winning and losing. It's about interacting with humans and learning those relationships that you don't get in, say, a science class or an AP computer science class. It's those sort of things that NEAS committee was very, very much appreciative of what we did and accommodated, and many accommodations came our way for programs like that. And I look at what the PE teachers and our health teachers are doing. It's not just about running around and playing dodgeball for 30 minutes to get your heart rate up. They are doing things about teaching kids about, proper nutrition and having kids do some activities that are different than what they normally do. Our health curriculum, kudos to our health teachers about the things that they are asking kids to do, and enlightening kids about. So I look at the struggles of some of our students on social emotional, and the things that they're being, the society is putting on them. And I would say that getting rid of health and PE is one of the last things you want to do to these kids. These kids need that course more than anything.
I just finished the thought, because I want this and that. So that being said, I'd love to be able to add what Dr. Farrer is saying. And it wasn't so long ago, we were even talking about adding community service as a graduation requirement.
Right, yeah.
So I'm all okay with, I'd be all for adding and making our graduation requirements more rigorous, not reducing anything, but adding to them. I don't think it's going to prohibit people from graduating. I have all the faith in the world, whatever our bar is, all of our students will get there. We have a really high graduation rate, lots of pathways to graduation here, lots of support, lots of, the board support in terms of the budget and obviously the administrative support and instructional support. So I didn't want to mislead anybody. I really would like this and that, if possible, if we could do that. So anyway, that was my final thought on that.
I don't think anybody's talking about not approving this program of study. I think the conversation is just a starting point to have a conversation moving forward, maybe for future consideration. And I'm not in favor of removing any of the PE offerings, but to say that our kids are required to take X amount of credits on here versus, they still have open electives. It doesn't, even if you reduce the PE requirements from 1 credit to a half a credit, it doesn't prohibit students from still taking that full credit if they so choose.
Yeah. I mean, and the way that we schedule courses is by student interest.
I'm sure there would still be heavy student interest to take.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, but the credit requirements in the program of studies are dictated by board policy. So that's why, you know, I think the original question was, why do we have 2 credits of PE health? It's what the board policy.
But if we're being fair, you know, sometimes your schedule's your schedule and it gets packed, and so some kids end up taking it in the summer or at evening because they just can't fit it. They're world-class musicians, and they're taking really challenging academics, and so they have to go somewhere else to get that other piece, so.
Yeah, and
that happens
we
too.
offer pretty dynamic, I mean, I'd almost rather take PE in the summer when you get to surf and do some other cool stuff that you can't do during the school year.
That's already on my kid's radar.
I mean, eventual is another option, I think, that
Yeah.
people take
Right.
advantage of, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the point that I mean, like to add on to Mr. Duffy's point, is that the opportunity that a student, if you're a multi-sports, you know, student, and you're not getting any benefit of PE credit for all the sports that you take, you are now, let's say, you're forced to take a traditionalist PE course that is now at odds for your time during the day for another course that you might want to take. So then now you've got to choose, and you've got to, of course, get these.
They're not all traditional PE credits. There's some pretty interesting choices. I
There
know
are.
some of our athletes will choose to take a strength and conditioning
Yeah.
option versus
Yeah.
just a regular gym class,
No,
because that's a great opportunity for those athletes to get some strength and conditioning training while they're in school versus then trying to find time after school to do something like that.
But what if I was relying on my spring quarter, my senior year to graduate for my PE credit, and I got cut, and I didn't make the team?
Injury.
Then
Or had
what?
an injury.
Or didn't-
Had an
Then what?
injury.
Well,
I think it's
so
an
it's
interest-
also proper planning. You don't wait to the very last quarter of your senior year to get a requirement in that you could potentially, it's a risk factor.
Yeah, you and I know that.
I
You and
think
know
the same
that.
thing happens though
could
if you
take it
plan
through
to take
VLAX.
if you plan to take a PE class and you get injured, and then you have a doctor's note that you can't take that PE class anymore, what do you do?
Well,
Same
again,
thing.
so, you know, the curriculum for those PE classes, it's not just about, you know, rolling out the ball and playing dodgeball for 90 minutes. There's more to it. There's reading, there's writing, there's, you know, the teachers have incorporated a lot of those pieces of the curriculum in those, you know, back to the 21st century. It's not just a technology piece, it's the collaboration, it's the communication, it's the reading and writing skills. And so those are incorporated into those PE classes as well. So kids our PE teachers are actually really good about getting kids involved in those class activities, even if a kid is on the sideline injured.
There's alternate activities in a PE class. There's no alternate activities in being cut from a team.
Right.
You're off the
I
team.
think the coaches do still work with, if athletes are injured, the coaches do really still work
Talking
with
about being
those.
Well,
cut from
I'm
a
talking
team.
about being cut. The injured
You
thing
were
was thrown from
expecting,
somewhere
yeah,
else.
if you're expecting to use that. Well,
Go ahead, you were already talking.
so I see this as 2 different conversations. The dropping a half credit in PE and putting it up at computer science is, if that's what you'd like us to go and consider and take it back to curriculum for the following year to consider, because the state's not making computer science a requirement, we'd be adding a a half credit to the graduation requirements that isn't isn't part of what so you have to change the policy as well and take something away from PE. So I see it 2 different apples and oranges as well. I'm not saying I don't want them to have as many opportunities in computer science, but if you're gonna direct us to go back to curriculum and discuss that possibility of PE and athletics counting as a half a credit, or we can take that all back, but it's gotta be all hooked up in the process. It's not gonna happen in 10 minutes, and we've got something planned for next year.
Did I just comment on that? I think though, one of the things I think that most of us are proud of working here is we don't adhere to minimum standards, right? So Timberlane's not about minimum standards. I think we go above and beyond in so many ways. So, you know, if we were increasing graduation requirements and any of those kind of conversations we have, whether it's computer science, community service, whatever it may be, it would be, again, we're not looking at minimum standards. So, you know, I mean, I think Timberlane does more than what the state asks us to do in many ways here. So I don't think that, I think it would be more, it would be consistent in terms of what we've been doing, and I think that would fit with our strategic plan.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
So we want a motion for this for the first read?
We already have a
We already have
motion.
it. Yep. We're waiting for a vote. It was discussion.
Okay. All those in favor?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, that was for first read?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll be back on December 5th
up to
to
you.
answer any questions after you read it.
Are we, can we move it right to us?
You'd have to waive the,
Well, you didn't notice it to waive it. And
you
it's
didn't,
on
right,
you
that's
didn't
fine.
notice to
On
waive
December
the
5th.
second.
Okay, never mind. I was just trying to move it along.
Okay, we'll move on to the computer science one.
So, in conjunction with the changes in the program of studies, to go through the process, the new computer science classes, and I don't know if you have a
Yeah, we do.
sort of a one-pager on the new computer science classes as well. It might be 2 pages. Again, as I spoke to those, to the revamp, if you will, of the computer science course offerings, a number of there's what I said earlier, 5, reduction of 5, adding 4. So the process, as I see it, is bringing the courses to first the CNA, then to this group, where the course descriptions have changed, the units have changed, and there's those 4 quote-unquote new classes. 2 of them are curriculum and need to get approved, are new curriculum written by the teachers or teacher, with support from myself and Dean Guanci. And so the first unit is written, it gets approved through this, and then it moves on, and the further units get revised, or it gets written. So that intro to computer science, as I talked about, which replaces computer concepts. The course description is there, the units are there, the curriculum is developed, or is being developed, that first UBD is, and then the other piece to bring forward is the budgetary impact, and there is no budgetary impact of that course. There's not textbooks, there's not material. It's digital licenses that we own for other unit or other courses, or it's free, or things like that, so there is no budgetary impact. The cybersecurity class, as I said, replaces the C++. The description there, the units that he's developed. Again, the curriculum is being developed by the teacher and with myself and Mr. Guanci. And then you have the first unit written in the UBD format. And again, the budgetary impact is no impact, as the software, once again, is either we own it or it's free. The other 2 courses that are kind of new would be AP Computer Science Principles. This is actually an AP course, one of the very few that gets offered to all kids, 9th through 12th graders. It's a little different from AP Computer Science A, where it's not as program and language intensive. It's more about those computational thinking and what it means to kind of think like a computer scientist. And so that's why it's offered out to the 9th graders as well. So it really, he's hoping that it's going to hook more kids into computer science because of just, it's not so language intensive. And again, the units are listed. The curriculum is actually, like all AP classes, it's not written by our teachers. It's dictated to us by the College Board. So there is no UBD curriculum units. The curriculum that he's actually going to take he's adapted it from code.org, which he's being trained in. And again, budgetary impact is there is no impact. And then the last one there is the programming in C#, which is modified from Computer Concepts 1. There really isn't any new curriculum documents, because what he's actually doing is taking the curriculum from Computing Concepts 1 and reorganizing it, taking all the components of that curriculum that's already written and reorganizing it, and it's written in such a way that he doesn't have to, he can still change, or he can change the language, the C# and still get through all of the competencies, the learning objectives written in that curriculum without having to rewrite a whole new curriculum. And again, there is no budgetary impact. And then the rest of that little packet is the new course description. So he's basically taken every single one of our computer science classes, looked at the curriculum, written a new course description to try and hook more kids, get more kids interested. Some of the wording in the old course descriptions were kind of dry and, like I said earlier, antiquated. So, he's trying to revitalize some of those courses through course descriptions and hooking more kids just through his ability to kind of interest kids and get kids interested. And I already know that there's buzz, there's word of mouth about him and what he's doing in those classes. So, hopefully we see more kids there.
I'm really excited to have him and looking at all of this. In fact, I told my daughter, who's a freshman, hold off on any computer science classes, because this is, we've got this person in here, and I've heard great things about him, and, get things moving. But about the AP Computer Science, we offer an AP Computer Science now.
We are currently offering AP Computer Science A. He is also looking to add AP Computer Science Principles. So AP Computer Science A is very language intensive. I believe it focuses on Java.
It is. It's Java.
Whereas AP Computer Science Principles doesn't necessarily focus on one particular language. It really gets into the fundamental concepts of computer science. There is some programming in Java, but it's not as intensive as Computer Science A.
So when I look at this back page on this program of studies, so are we going to have 2 AP Computer Science classes?
Correct.
Do you anticipate enrollment in 2? What's our enrollment in 1?
Very low.
Yeah.
Usually under a half dozen students, correct?
Correct. I mean, I think part of this is just a carryover from years of, it has been low enrollment. The percentage of computer scientists in the world is fairly low. So if you look at percentage-wise, it's going to be low in any school. He's hoping that some of these changes are going to up the enrollment.
Yeah, I hope so.
He's looking for ways to increase enrollment and up it, and he's hoping that through some of these changes that he's suggesting, and I fully support, will get us there. And yes, if you look at the numbers right now, yes, they're low. I think he's got some buzz going about, the potential for new courses, and so that's hoping to,
And I don't want to take it away listen, if he wants to teach all those courses, that's awesome. But I just was wondering what our enrollment is now, and is our enrollment now, because our enrollment now are those students who would be taking that second AP course, because you're not going to have students just come into computer science and take that AP course.
Well, the new one that he's proposing, the AP Computer Science Principles, you can enroll in that as a freshman.
So you could take
So
that
you could take
9
it
through
going
12.
right into freshman year. Like, you could take it freshman through senior year. You can.
So that's a
There is no-
good avenue, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Hopefully.
So,
I'm sorry.
we're going to make a motion to put this on the floor.
Yeah, I think the way these descriptions are written, I'm excited about them. I want to take them. And I'm looking through the curriculum for CS principals. This is good stuff.
Oh, good, I'm glad, they've worked really, really hard on this. They
No,
really have.
This is good stuff.
He's jumped into this, both feet, and he went this summer and got trained. He gave up his summer to go and get training in this. He's passionate about computer science, and it clearly shows with the students that he has. So we're hoping that these changes are going to drive some kids thinking about it and considering it and getting those numbers up.
I think you'll see that happen.
On the AP Computer Science A, I'm not understanding why you have a prerequisite of Intro to Computer Science. Because I know, I hate to use my own daughter as an example, but she took that course without a prerequisite, and it is an intro programming course. There's no expectation that you've had any computer science. So I'm just kind of wondering why that's there.
I wasn't going to override, the decision made by the teacher suggesting that. I honestly, I didn't have a conversation with him about that particular course and that particular prerequisite. I know that we've done with some, and I don't know, And I can look whether it says or department approval, or if it just simply says that one course.
You revised.
On the
Yeah.
program of studies, it
Right.
just says prerequisite is intro to computer science.
Is that a mistake? It's still left in
I
there.
just kind of wonder, I don't think that used to be the sole prerequisite, and I mean, I've looked at that course, I don't know why, you can just jump into that course without any background at all.
Can you just check on that before this goes to print, if that's a
I'm just worried you're
mistake?
gonna
Might
limit
have got
students
left
that,
in.
because especially students that are gonna wanna go into an AP course, my concern is they may not wanna take a CCP course because of the
Yeah.
whole grade thing.
What page is that on?
It's on page
36.
36.
Okay. That,
Yeah, I can look into
let's
that.
just have him look into that before you go to print.
Yep, I can look into that.
So can we just, the AP course that's being added, that we just talked about, okay, so that one you can take without a prerequisite if you have instructor approval.
Correct.
So that's the one that you said a freshman could potentially take if they
Right.
wanted to.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying, but the other one does not.
The other one does not. It might have just gotten cut off, but, so I will look into that.
Okay, thanks. I just,
Yeah, it looks like
I
it-
don't think you wanna.
No, we
limit
never
that.
want to discard, and I mean,
And I think you probably will if you don't.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
I will look into that.
Yeah. So we need a motion on the floor to, let's see, accept the two Intro to Computer Science and Cybersecurity, those two courses, or
Correct.
revitalized courses.
So those are
for-
new curriculum.
Those are new curriculum, so we need to,
Why don't we just
except for
do it as,
first read.
First read of the proposed.
And that,
Computer
you've got
science.
four things going here, so I was trying to clarify it, or make it all at once if you wanna accept all of this for first read.
Well,
Wanna do it?
it's on the agenda as the computer science curriculum. Why can't, could we just do that?
Sure.
Approve the proposed curriculum with the changes as noted?
As noted, yep.
I'll
I
make
just
that
wanna make sure
motion.
you realize we got four things going here.
Right.
So that's my motion,
Can you
accept
do it
all,
again? You're going to approve the
all
computer
four.
science? Yep, curriculum as
Changes.
presented?
Yes.
Made, seconded by.
A second.
Sarah. Any further discussion? No, call for a vote, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Next one is PPS/SPED in-house program update. Evening.
Good evening. This evening, I'm going to be giving you an update regarding the Compass Behavior Interventions. Just to give you a little background, in what we were looking at essentially was to find a middle ground, something that didn't require a student leaving our district, but coming into the district. We took a group of administrators this summer to go out and look at the on-site approved program that they run that's out of district. Because I really wanted everyone to have a look at what the approach was that was working for so many kids outside of our district and see if we couldn't create a model that would work here. So all of the interventions that we have in terms of the presentations I provided before regarding the interventions, they're all still in place and they're meeting the needs of the students. This is really targeted at those students that have significant trauma and are really, their behaviors are so intense that they're really not even able to function. So this program is really providing us with another alternative to keep students in district, but also allow them to have an opportunity in real time to actually develop better behaviors. And they have a very program-targeted way that they do it. So I want to start with the behavior principles that Compass has, because it's a little bit different in terms of the series that they go through. They use positive reinforcement, that there's also a reward that's structured and designed for the student. The student is an integral part of that decision. And they really are a research-based system that indoctrinates all of their members that are coming on site into a consistent philosophy regarding behavior. And they have a piece on their website which really is talking about their innovative strategies. Their principle is also to have students in real time in learning academics, and that's the reason for selecting them over another program that we could look at. I want to go over some of the job descriptions that we have. We often hear the term BCBA. Both the registered behavior technician and the board certified behavior analyst are all certified and have to meet stringent criterias in terms of data collection and also consistent in what they're looking for in behaviors. We are looking at the Pollard School for this program. The reason for that is that we are looking both at students that now aren't able to come back into the district because of their behaviors, and we really want to focus on bringing some of our students that have left back in. So there's a twofold piece to this, as well as an ESY component. Initially, we're going to start the program with just 4 students, a cohort of 4. They will have 2 opportunities for academics. One will be for more of the discrete trial piece, which is you focus in on one specific behavior and you work them through academics on a computer that's generated and is sequential in nature. Then you look to adopt that behavior, plateau it when it's mastered, then integrate it into the classroom setting. These students will be expected to follow the Timberlane curriculum as well, but the ACE is a New England Center program that we offer already. So the ACE program is sequential for life skills as well as academics. Oop. Can't see where it went. There it is. All right, I think we're right here. Five? Yeah, it's sticking on me, I can't.
Oh, there it is.
Right there, Polly. All right, so I wanted to give you the team that's going to be working with us in this program. This presentation is really before our actual on-site meeting, which will take place on Monday. So Dan and Allie Doobie are the co-founders of this program. They are also parents of students on the spectrum. Together they have 4 children, and the one piece that was really has stayed with me since I met them is that they understand that every child is different, and so the strategies that they used are consistent for them to really generalize across different settings, home, school, and community, but they've had to use a consistent strategy or interventions, a string of interventions to really get them working. This program is going to have, actually, they have hired Ellen Banning, who is the BCBA. She's also a special education teacher, and the reason why we wanted to have both credentials is so they had an understanding of the classroom environment. These students are not staying in one set place. They're actually going into their classroom, and that's the reason for the registered behavior technicians. So there will be 4 students in this cohort, and they will have a registered behavior technician, and then the 5th is the extra that will be provided so that a student is not in a classroom without a registered behavior technician focused on their behavior. This program is also going to provide the ESY, so the students will have more consistency throughout their school year. It's not a case of we're going to try and fit them into other programming. They'll have that consistent philosophy, and it's usually a 3 to 5 year branch for these students to be able to perform without any interventions. The last requirement, and something that we realized, is that the mental health that's in this area is not truly supportive of families that are requiring a level of support and intervention. So in order for a student to be part of this intervention system, they are going to have to sign up for them and agree to a 2-hour-a-month intervention with the RBT so that they're generalizing the skill sets and behaviors in the home as well as the school. When I look to cost, what we, did it again, Dean, sorry. 5? Oh. Just want the chart. Just want the chart. What we did is we took a look at the left-hand side, the graph that you're looking at for the benefit of the people at home is on the left-hand side, you have Timberlane. If we were to replicate this program with our current staff, it's showing you the figures and the cost for the year. And then on the right-hand side, we've negotiated a contract with Compass that provides us with that same level of intervention, and there are some cost savings. This first year is taken out of the IDEA grant, and my hope in moving forward is that as we move forward with this, we'll be able to use the grant to be more responsive to the trends in special education that we see. So, and the green, you have the board-certified behavior analyst, you have the registered behavior technician, then you have the parent training, and that's an RBT, but there's also a social worker that's going into the home. And then the purple is basically the general cost. So you can see that we are offering this to our students, that small cohort of 4, at some savings, but the hope is really to have these students be able to stay with their peers and work on necessary behavior skills so that they're a part of our community right through pre-K to 12. And I can answer any questions or considerations that you'd want me to.
Susan, speak to why you're gonna house it at Pollard. You started and then you.
Sorry. At Pollard School, for the last 2 years, we've had a number of students, because of their own personal situation, that have gone out of district. And when we looked at some of the issues, both with that group in and of itself, there were a lot of consistent pieces that we had. We had a behaviorist that was there and would oversee some of their programming, but was not in just one school. So we felt as though we had a layer or a tier of intervention that was working for some of our students, but when it came to the intensity of the address that was required, it really needed something more. And this, in this contract that we have, it's really understood that it's Pollard this year, but let's say for the sake of this conversation that we have 5th grade students that go into the programming. We may have to look at considering a second program in the building, and that would be where we would go. So if kids can do it in the 3 years and they come to us in 2nd grade, then conceivably their behaviors are going to be more generalized in the classroom, and they'll have a more typical experience.
There's room there.
Yes.
Because you're
As a
gonna
matter
need
of
some
fact,
space.
yes, that's a great question. And the other piece is that Doug has been part of this whole process. And we have also begun that process with our teachers. A meeting on Monday with Doug. We have a list of questions, and we're going to kind of parse out the piece as we go along as to how we're going to collaborate within the school day.
And this would begin, you would like this to start?
January 6th is when they're coming on.
Jen, do you have something?
So this is a contract that we will have with this group. So these won't, so these employees will be their employees, not our employees?
And the other piece to it is that when we get to a point where this level of intervention is not needed by this cohort, they're well-versed in being able to know how to fade, which is a behavioral term for they can move away, and they'll do that inherently. Because they both are parents that really wanted their kids to have a public school experience, and it was not an option. So there is a lot of passion and drive for this to work for our kids.
Sarah?
So you mentioned that at Pollard particularly, there were some students that we moved out of the school. Is the hope to be able to bring those students back in, or are those the 4 students that are going to be working?
So the composition of the students that we have now, we have students that have not considered out-of-district placement.
Okay.
The families really want to consider options in-house. You've heard a lot of talk that we've provided regarding trauma-informed schools. When we send a child out, we send the family and the child is a level of trauma that they experience in having to leave their community schools. What we won't do is we won't take a student that left the Pollard building and bring them back to the Pollard building.
Okay.
What we have had success with is after the 3-year period where the student is growing and learning their behaviors, we have brought them through our extended school year program, and if they're able to do the extended school year program with the level of behavioral interventions we have there, we transition them back at the middle school. And we've done that for 3 consecutive years with students, and that's been very successful. My bottom line is I'm not going to take a student who truly wants to come back if they're not ready, because I don't want to re-traumatize them and send them back out. So we do have the distinction of really bringing our kids back, and they stay to graduation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to, you know, I support all this. It sounds like it's a very good program, the reintroduction and stuff. The voices that we hear here are always for the student right now. And what I want to understand is the voice of the other students that could potentially be disenfranchised with the behavior in the classroom, and it disrupts their learning experience. So how are we going to address that issue so that other students in their learning, which they have a right to,
Right.
be addressed without having the effects? And I understand that we have to deal with a lot of different things in life, and it's a good experience that other students see in this. But at what point do you say, okay, we've had enough of this right now, we have to do something different? That's the kind of stuff I wanted to.
It's a great question, because really what
I know
we're
it's a
looking
gingerly
to...
subject to talk about either. too.
Well, you know what, though, in fairness, we're here for all students, right?
Correct.
And I think one of the things that we don't want to let it get to that escalated period, because nobody wants to see anybody going through a challenging piece. So to answer your question is when it relies on safety. I've had that discussion before where we go interim alternative ed setting. It's a 45-day placement, and then this would be an opportunity to get to your question in terms of all students. They're not having to witness this piece. They are in an out-of-district placement. This program also addresses the fact that we're not letting it rise to that level where we have to say that. We now have an intervention in place that will allow us to help students realize that a student can go through a rough time, but they're not being interrupted in their learning. The RBT goes with the student, but I have to preface it by if there's safety for anyone, then that's an interim alternative ed setting, and that's a regulation we have to live by.
Oh, understood. Jen?
Just to your point, Sean, so this program will have a registered behavioral technician for each student.
Right, they follow the student,
And so right
they're
now,
collecting the
how many
data.
registered behavioral technicians do we have in Pollard?
You have one, and that one is being used successfully with the oversight of a BCBA for intermittent behaviors and the climate and culture within the
So
classroom.
I think to what you're talking about, when we've had conversations about what do the buildings need, how can we support these behaviors, I think these behavioral one-to-ones it's too bad we can't have more.
Well, you know, well, yes, but I think the other piece is that we really want to empower students to grow and learn from their experience. And so it takes a community and a village to grow any of our children. And I think this piece is really going to support those extremes. There are going to be some students that do need to go out, because I've talked to you a lot extensively about some of the trauma that students are facing. And when we hear about home programs that are being done by outside agencies, they're saying we haven't even hit the crisis of some of the infants that were born 2 years ago with the opioid addiction and what we're going to face. So those pieces, because of my involvement with the courts, we follow. And it's an unfortunate situation to have to think about, but it's a reality that we are going to be faced with in about 4 years. So I think the RBT also fades, but I think the nice thing for a classroom teacher is now they know that there's someone there that's taking the data, that's actually working on getting that behavior through. But it's not going to be for your extreme behaviors because we have another avenue that we would take for those students.
Any questions?
To help me, is there anything that you would like me to be aware of, or anything that you would like in terms of follow-up? As I said, this is still being worked on, and in January, I'd be happy to take that into consideration now.
Be an update in, say, the early spring? Or
Sure.
later spring?
Do you,
Sure.
do
If
you
we even have a
anticipate,
spring?
do you have families already lined up who have agreed to participate in this?
We do, and actually what we did is we started with the home component first, because we felt that if the families had the start, and that paperwork is starting, there isn't any, because it's a January 6th, we're still getting the paperwork in the process, moving forward, but that is a piece that we're gonna work on. But we have not had, as I said in the presentation, we're gonna keep it as a cohort of 4, because now one of the other pieces we hear students say is they don't have any friends. Now they have a cohort of a group going with them, and if they should need that through middle school, high school, we're prepared to do a 6 to 12 when we feel we can do that. Partially through budget, partially through the grant as well, but the elementary piece would be in the grant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, budgets. Jeff?
Good evening, I'm delighted. My name is Jeff Dowd, CFO for the Timberlane Regional School District. I'm delighted that you were able to hear about that program from Susan that I had referenced in previous budget discussion. It's quite an innovative program, and I certainly think that it shows the intent of the district on keeping our students in the schools and in least restrictive environments while meeting their needs at the same time. So thank you, Susan, for that. So there are a couple budget documents in front of you this evening, and I wanted to give you an update on the general operating budget. And as I had mentioned, we take a look around this time every year, being that this is just about as late in the budget process as we can, to do a check on where our special ed and student services departments are, where their needs are, what their census has been, where their enrollments are, and what their future year is looking like for budget purposes. And you'll see a draft school budget operating budget draft tracking sheet. We did have 2 increases, and they were rather large. We have another one as well that came in after this was generated. We're increasing the budget $545,000 in the 1,200 accounts, the 561, which is other tuitions to other LEAs, and the 564, which is.
Can you just back up? No, I'm not following you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
On this.
Yep, that one right there.
Single sheet? This tracking sheet, yep.
Then just go to the draft right above where it says draft 4. You'll see the additions.
Just say the 530K should be 545?
No, no, it's a total of 545, which is the 530 and 15 altogether,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I aggregated, and they're both in the 1,200 account, both in the 500 object code. So one is just for other LEA, which is another school within the state, and the other is for outside placements, which is the 564 of 530,000. So I've asked Susan to stick around and offer some insight into this if that's the board's prerogative. If you'd like some more information on those projected increases at this time, Susan might be able to give you a better idea than I can on those. Those bring the total budget as proposed to $74,856,144. And I have another increase which came in after that, which is for Primex. Our not to exceeds came in for Primex, And in one area we're up, in one area we're down from where I had originally budgeted. So it's a difference of about 50,000, which would be added on to the budget between our property and liability and workers' comp policies.
Which one went up?
Workers' comp.
It looks like you increased it in the default budget, but not in the proposed budget.
I did, yep, I did. I was able to get into that version and not in the operating, that'll be going into the operating.
That answers one question.
How many more you got?
6? Are we,
Yeah, no, go.
okay.
Go ahead.
Can we look at the default budget, the first page,
Sure.
please?
Can we jump over to that first, and I will, just by way of quick update, the two changes that we discussed, plus the Primex increases are the changes in the default budget from the last time we looked at it. So exactly the same changes in the default as we just discussed. So I'm more than happy to look at that, yeah.
Okay, so can we look at the 734 line?
Yes.
Yes.
What was it?
734. When I look at this this is a new equipment, network equipment line, and you're requesting 56,985. The default has 120,000. I don't think that, I'm sorry, yeah, it's new equipment. So I'm not sure how you can justify that in the default budget when it's down 63,000 in the proposed budget.
That is part of the technology plan, and if you see, yes, you're right, it is 56,000 in that budget. If you see the shift between the account classification for the Chromebook program in particular.
Which line is that?
So when we look at 734, that would be new
734.
equipment. Yep, and 737 would be replacement equipment. And in the operating budget, we've shifted more of that to the replacement equipment end. So the new equipment purchases in the previous year's budget weren't one-time purchases to the extent that we're continuing to make those purchases. They're just being classified as replacement in the subsequent operating budget. So in the default budget, there wouldn't be anything to necessarily come out. It's just that they would be classified for accounting purposes as replacement in the budget year if the default were to pass.
And in the proposed budget, why is there such a big increase in 738? It's going from 92.5 up to 261.
And that has to do with the fact that we're, again, purchasing those Chromebooks and a lot of the equipment that we're now purchasing for technology is considered replacement, would be considered replacement equipment. Maybe the same equipment that we bought or have been buying, phasing in. But we're now shifting all of that to replacement. As we're getting into a cycle of replacing a lot of our.
So you're saying in the default, you're capturing it in 734, but in the proposed, you're capturing it in 738?
738, that's correct, yeah. So we're essentially buying the same, I won't say buying, we're budgeting to buy what we purchased in the previous year's operating budget. The accounting treatment of that is simply as a replacement in the subsequent year. So when you look at it and say, well, gee, normally we look at new equipment and we consider that a one-time purchase. Well, we're buying the same number of Chromebooks. It's just that now, because now we're cycling them out now, more than anything. So that was an exception to that. Normally, you can look at new equipment and say, yeah, it's a one-time, we won't be purchasing that again. In that case, that was something I looked at and looked at rather uniquely. Say we're essentially buying the same ones, it's just replacement for operating budget purposes. And I wouldn't remove it from the default because it's not really a one-time.
Okay, Jen?
I do remember that conversation last year because I remember talking to somebody and making that point that Chromebook rollout was a long-term plan.
Right.
But when I look at those three lines, the 734, 737, 738, so when I add those up in the default, it's 276,000, or almost 277,000. In the proposed, it's 425,669. So are we looking to basically add $200,000 over last year's for this year?
For next year, we would be looking to add that additional into next year's budget, yes.
Not quite 200,000, but, but that's in replacement network?
Correct. Correct.
What is that, what is included in that? What kinds of things? I'm just curious.
Let me get the details for you. Ken presented last week at our, Director of Technology presented at our Budget Committee meeting last week on that. So give me just a second. So I can be exact with what it is that he's. Services. Ken had put in, give me a minute, I will get that detail for you. I have to come back to that. I want to see if I can be precise with what it was that he was looking to purchase. He had a number of purchases that went down to the school levels as well.
That's all right. I can look back at that meeting. I was just curious if you happen to know. It's fine. I put myself a note with the meeting date. I'll go back and look. No worries.
On line 1600, 643 in the default budget,
1643?
1600, 643. We're showing 39,120 in the default budget, but you're showing 15,000 in the proposed budget.
Take a look here. Right, and so we had purchased, I believe, some licenses in the 20 budget cycle that I believe were more than 1 year.
Fees and licenses
Yes, yep,
in the cloud stuff, yeah.
yep, Edgenuity.
So if that's the case, you wouldn't have the obligation.
Correct, yeah.
So that line should come down to 15,000. Does everybody see what I'm, why? The proposed budget has that line as 15,000.
Right, but the last year's voted number was,
I know, but there's no longer the obligation.
If we don't have those contracts anymore for those
That one pager
licenses.
from Ken last week, Jeff,
At the
do you have that
budget.
one pager by any chance?
Don't we, you can pull it up though. That's what I was looking for, and I think, I remember I
Maybe
gave
we
him
can
my,
check on that, but the proposed budget is showing 15,000.
I gave him my copy, Brian. Let me just pull it up real quick though. Those are both
Because
in,
those are like agreements
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. Could we check on that?
I am looking for it right now.
Next year. the license expires, you'd have to include in the default, because it's an obligation to continue. the
Right,
license.
right.
Correct, so it'd be in the default for the subsequent year.
Correct.
Right.
That I would agree with.
Who does it? You do those, right? Those one pages?
Jumping over 1 year.
Or do
No,
they
Ken-
do?
no, those are done by
They
the
do them?
departments. Yeah.
Are you looking, or should we move on? And
Well, no, I think I've got the answer for you. So, and I'm going to actually go back to the 738 account. So the justification on the 738, just to jump back there, is outlined in the line for student Chromebooks are now being put into the replacement line item. The district's firewalls are nearing the end of their useful life and need to be replaced.
CIP.
PAC's auditorium projector is at the end of its useful life and has already had repairs needed in the past year. These have been quite expensive. I think bulbs are burning out. The quoted new model is the laser projector that doesn't burn bulbs and is much clearer resolution than the current model. So that speaks to the operating budget being up beyond what our previous year's budget was on that. Let me see if I have anything here for the 1600.
I'm excited about a new pack projector. That pack projector it wasn't a very crisp.
That's pretty tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that the last failure occurred during a PD day. Not helpful.
The bulb.
Yeah, not helpful. And getting to the 1600, 643, yep, that was for a 3-year license, so, yeah. that
3-year
could-
license.
Yeah, that could come up because it's paid for, so we would
Okay,
have to revisit it at that
that
time.
line should be adjusted. Moving on to page 12, 11.
We're not gonna go backwards, we're going forwards here, so are you gonna go back to 8 or
No,
7
no,
or
I'm going
6
forward.
and 1? Good.
I won't kill you by going backwards.
Where are you now?
I'm on page
Page
11.
11.
We're skipping on, it's a lot of pages to jump, yay.
That's why I said, are you backing up? Or you-
No, it sure was, keep.
Looking at 262520, which is an insurance line in the middle of the page.
Yes,
The default has 189,444, and you're showing a decrease. But the proposed has 203,313. I would think that that would be an obligation, so I would think that the default budget should show that number.
oh, no, it's quite the opposite. It's the opposite, Kim, in this one.
Please explain.
Yes, no, it's actually quite the
You're right.
opposite. That's the line that Primex had given us the not to exceed.
Oh.
And so the not to exceed, I had originally budgeted greater than what their not to exceed was. So in the operating budget, that's showing is what, 203 or 205?
203,313.
That's 189,444, 189,444
That's what it's showing in the default.
in the default, and that's what it will be in the operating budget.
Okay, so
That's
the
gonna be
operating,
corrected in the,
Adjusted to 189,444.
Correct.
in the operating budget.
$5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why it goes the opposite way. It's down in the default and it'll be down in the operating. But it's not showing the operating as being down.
Okay. On page 12, 2640,430, which is care and upkeep of equipment. You're showing 155,000 in the default, but 130,000 in the proposed budget.
Wait a minute, I'm not following. What line was that again, Kim?
2640,430.
repair and.
Oh,
maintenance.
okay. I was one.
I'm not sure how we justify a higher amount on that line,
You know, that,
default budget, than in the proposed
so
budget.
typically when I would look at that, I would look at, is it a contractual obligation up or down? Is it a one-time expenditure? And I can't say that anything in that line is a one-time expenditure. I think we're looking to bring it back probably a little bit more to what our expenditures had been, but from a default budget perspective, really it is your previous year appropriations by the voters, plus or minus your contractual obligations, one-time expenditures. When I look at that, I don't really see, again, a one-time expenditure or contractual obligation that's expiring, unlike, for example,
That's just what the voters voted, and so that's what the number stays unless we have.
Right.
like the ingenuity that went down because, the obligation's been prepaid, so.
And so this year, we're just planning to budget a little less because of our track spending.
Hoping that we'll be able to get by with a little less.
And then on page 14, 2,900, 260. I think you already answered that on the workman's comp. I don't think you've adjusted it in the proposed budget
Correct.
yet.
Correct, absolutely correct. So that's gonna be
Hasn't
going.
corrected that yet.
Yep, that'll go up in proposed.
Okay, and then
Great, I can.
So 2,900, 260, we are looking at going up to the 261, 358.
Correct.
in the proposed budget on the 2620, 330 line, this is on page 13.
Of the proposed budget.
13, 620, is it 330? Yes. Other
Why is the
professional
professional services up 50,000 in this line?
Is that 1,200, 330?
No, it's 2620,
2620.
330. It's on page 13.
Oh, you backed up.
I'm on a different budget now. I'm on the proposed budget.
Oh, and
She's not going-
you're killing me.
Yeah, she's not going backwards, she's going to a different budget.
Yeah.
13, page 13.
Yeah, I got page 13 of the proposed budget. I'm with you now.
It was 2620, 330, or 430.
330.
330.
330 is
we're up
other
50,000.
professional services.
Yep, we'll get that for you. I think part of that is based on trend, and part of that is based on what I foresee as our aging systems in our buildings, and particularly I think we've been under budgeted on that in the past by a good clip. I don't think that our trend rate is showing that we're going to be doing any better on that. We do have higher costs coming in, and we have more stringent requirements coming in from the state, which I would anticipate are going to cause some increases in some of our budget lines and our expenditure lines as well.
What
So-
sort of state requirements?
We have by way of example, we have some additional PFOA testing requirements. The state has increased their, is made more stringent their tolerances for the PFOAs in the water. PFOAs, I think I'm saying it correctly. And it's a significant clip. And I do have some concerns that when that testing comes in, any of our campuses may be subject to additional water remediation. And I know in Hampstead, we had that issue a number of years ago, it might be 3 or 4 years ago, and it wasn't due to any increased testing, it was just some leaching from the ground. And the filtration of that alone was like 25,000. It was one well of 2 that was impacted. And it was about 25,000 to mitigate. So I'm not feeling real comfortable that the additional requirements from the state are going to be friendly to our budget. And if it's in the best interest of our students and the users of our buildings, I'm sure we're all in favor of it, but I do anticipate that we're going to be faced with a little bit more compliance expenditure-related obligations than we have in the past.
So right now, I know we do regular water testing now. Is it a comprehensive testing that we do for like PFOAs, for VOCs? I mean, I know we do the radon, I know we do the lead, like those standard arsenic.
Yeah, we are considered a public water source because of how many students we serve or how many individuals we serve. The problem is that as comprehensive as we're doing right now, the testing that they're looking to do is a more advanced type of testing. And understand that test alone is like $500 per draw or per test. So we are doing the testing that we need to do. Their tolerances have become more stringent. So we're going to have to do additional testing to get to understand the contents of our water to the extent that they are requiring under the new regulations. There's been quite a bit of pushback, actually, on that, particularly from, plastics manufacturers. as you can imagine, that it's beyond federal, it's more stringent than federal limits. So, but we have obviously identified some heightened PFOA, PFAS in our water and southern New Hampshire and perhaps along the seacoast as well, so I get it.
And just one more question right there on this same part of the budget on line 2620-116. There's an increase of 94,277. Is that the addition of the facilities?
No, that should be in, actually, that's where I made it put it. Let me just double check.
Where is that in this budget?
Let me check.
Why wouldn't that match the default? We're requesting more?
I don't know. I'm not sure what that line is, why that line's there.
No, but wouldn't it be the same as the default salaries? Or are we, maybe in our proposed, we're looking to add additional,
Well, where did the facilities person go that we added? Where's that salary is what, I guess that's my question.
The person's salary?
He is at just a few lines above that, 2610, 111.
26. So that line, those lines aren't even in the default budget, because it's a new position.
Correct, yeah.
So what's the increase of that's fine, but what is the increase of 94,000 in the custodial salaries? Is that just a pay increase?
I believe in large part, we've had different staff come on with different skill sets, which have put them at a different, level for pay. So therefore, they would then roll into the operating budget.
So we've had different people come on with different skill levels?
Mhm.
So they must clearly have come in at somewhat higher pays then.
Somewhat higher rate, that's correct, yeah.
So we're going from so we're adding about 100 and we're adding about 150, we're expending that of almost $150,000 more in custodial salaries from last year.
To some degree, yes. I've included overtime as well in that budget line, in the 2620-116.
20, say,
That 2620-116 line.
if we have that much in overtime, should we look at increasing our custodial staff?
Is it more custodial staff?
It's not, the tough thing with overtime is it's the best way to put this, it's not necessary, if we have overtime that we're paying in a normal, let's just say we might be paying someone overtime to cover another location. So that's one form of overtime. The other form of overtime that you have is when we have, for example, a snowstorm, and our campuses need to be cleaned and cleared off, and we have our custodians in, sometimes working double shifts to make sure that the buildings are clear. If you have a snowstorm coming in after school, we can have that staff come in, make sure the grounds are clear, particularly on this campus.
But we're expecting $100,000 more and that kind of stuff next year than
No,
this year?
that's not it, no. That's not the only thing. We did have some adjustments in the
Salaries.
in the salaries. And I don't expect that 100,000 additional in overtime. We pay overtime anyway. But that is,
That's kind of, well, that's what I was asking. So the default is 1.6 million and the proposed is 1.7 million.
So I think if you take those two factors between the overtime and and the additional skill sets that we've brought in facilities and custodial and maintenance, that brings you to the difference in the 95.
How much out of that salary line are we paying out in overtime?
I've budgeted 100,000, and I would have to get that number for you as to where that exact number falls. And it's a bit tough at times because when we're short, we can end up covering overtime and still not paying something out perhaps on the salary end. So we have an opening, for example, we aren't paying salary, we are paying overtime to cover that.
Is that, how many custodians is that spread out over, though?
We have 40, something like that, 35.
35 plus.
Yep.
So you get 100,000 for 35 people.
Yeah, it's good.
3,000 apiece.
Quite a few people, it's not one person.
It's just that when you look at building operating services, we're up $300,000 for next year.
What's your total line you looking at? What are you looking
You're
at?
up more than 300. You're up.
But
You're up 400,000 with the addition of the other person. I'm looking at the roll-up of the 2610 and the 2620 lines. Those two, between those two function lines, you're up 400,000. You might just for budget committee, you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah, fair.
Which ones, Kim, I'm sorry?
2610 and 2620.
Starting in page 13, all the way through to page 14.
We 2620, oh, it's on the back side of this.
Brian, I'm okay to bring that to the budget committee.
Okay, anybody else have anything else?
I'm all set, thanks.
So a couple other things, Kim, you had asked a question.
I asked a question, what is the salary for the school board clerk
For the annual meeting.
for the annual meeting?
So that's a $200 stipend for the meeting, and a $200 stipend for any subsequent meeting, for example, recount or any other type of meeting that would come up. Not a whole heck of a lot for quite a bit of work.
Sorry, not a whole heck of a lot for
It's
quite
not
a
a
bit
whole
of
heck of a
work.
lot for quite a bit of work between the annual meeting. There's quite a bit that goes into coordinating that annual meeting as the clerk.
Such as?
Well, you've seen.
I'm just trying to get an idea.
Takes note-
Do we have
just
any
takes the
applicants
notes.
for that position yet?
Yeah, we got one.
We do have one, okay.
Yeah. Kathy, I don't know if you could speak to it a little bit better than I know. Nancy has her boxes that she brings over, has to get everyone set, all the towns set up for voting.
Yeah, if you're familiar with what a town clerk does for your annual meeting, that would be the responsibility of the school district clerk, if that's
Except for
helpful.
4
Anybody
towns.
who works for the town or knows what they do at the town, it's pretty well. We try to coordinate that with the SA, with the central office.
Mhm.
But it's extensive work, responsibility, signing off, certifying.
Okay.
It's discrete in
Thanks.
terms of the time of year that it occurs, obviously,
Right.
and it's not, it would be the minutes as well, but that's definitely not the whole thing. So that's the answer. I hope that's an answer to the question that you were looking for. And I did have one other thing, Mr. Chairman. I will know that you had asked for revenue, and we're still trying to hammer out some revenue numbers. But I did have a quick update, if I may, from the state on our numbers for aid that came in. I don't know if you're familiar with those numbers. Have you seen them?
No, I have not.
No?
Are they in our packets?
Nope. I think I include them there. We are up, overall as a district, adequacy aid appears to be up 939,000,
That's good news.
829.
Can you say
So
that again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
939,000,
Yeah.
829,
And that's adequacy aid?
correct?
Can you, is any of that for kindergarten?
Yes.
So for, I don't know if I want to go down this road tonight.
I know where you're going, so go ahead. I think I know
Well,
where
go
you're
ahead,
going.
no, go ahead. Can you explain the increase to the kindergarten adequacy aid? How about that?
There is no real increase in kindergarten adequacy aid. In fact, from a technical perspective, it's probably lower than our first year of kindergarten aid. The reason for this is that the state has included in the provision relating to adequacy aid that the adequacy aid applies to kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, to the extent that it is district funded. The Department of Revenue Administration, I believe, is interpreting district funded to mean solely district funded. So what that means is that we, as a tuitioning district, do not receive that second half-day of kindergarten aid for our full-day kindergartners.
But we're not losing that first half day. Okay.
Yep, we don't lose it, but under kindergarten, the very first year they did that.
Kindergarten.
Yeah, under that kindergarten aid, we were receiving full day.
But regardless, we're still up because.
Well, yes, we are, and no, we're not. So we're up as a district. Atkinson is actually down $6,289. Danville is up $296,634. Plastow, down $109,170. And I'm not sure where Sheila is. It's an unfortunate night to miss.
Lee's here.
Lee is here. It would be good to have the two of you here for $758,000 additional.
What was Danville? Danville was up how much? 200
Seven.
something?
Danville's up 296,000.
Thanking.
634.
For that.
You won't get that till next bill.
Sandown,
You're welcome.
Yeah. Sandown, 758, 654. So, some good news and some bad news, I guess, tonight on budgets, but at least revenue's up, so. Any questions?
Not on a budget aspect, but sort of a budget. It's the financial statements. I believe, somebody had contacted me that they were looking for the financials.
They're out there, and I actually have copies upstairs if you'd like them.
No, to put them out online so that we can get them?
They're out in the budget committee, and I can have you post them, if you post them
Yeah, I
differently.
haven't been posting them on the school board, I haven't gotten them from you, so they
Okay.
must be on the budget committee
I
side.
will shoot them over then,
I think it was for September and October.
September and October.
It's not out there.
Yeah. I have them upstairs, and I'll shoot them over to Kathy and we'll get them up.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, next one is our warrant articles.
The only change to your warrant articles this time around are the numbers that we put in for the TSSU. That was ratified at the last meeting.
Okay. Would it be safe to start to number these articles so that we can?
Well, it all depends, because my understanding is that we could possibly or potentially be adding another collective bargaining item as well. As long as we know that we're not having any bonds, I can certainly, the operating budget will be article number 2. So if you're not proposing any bonds, that would be great. And
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that,
if you're comfortable in the order in which they are, I can certainly number them to an extent. One thing I did do, which we could do, is instead of having the authorization for special costs on each of the union contracts, we just have one at the end that includes all 3. And it's worded in a fashion that it's not predicated on the passing of that. The way that, if you read the way that it's worded, it's the attorney's language.
For, I'm sorry, which one?
Well, it's not numbered, but it would be the,
Authorization for
just
special
above the
meeting on
withdrawal.
cost items?
Oh. Yeah.
I wouldn't number these yet, because I wouldn't number these yet.
Well, so can we just, can we, or can somebody explain that authorization for special meeting on cost items?
It means that if any of your, excuse me, CBAs fail, then you have an obligation to renegotiate. And that's what that is. Excuse me, normally you'd have to go to court to get permission to do that. This saves you just court fees. You still have to go through the whole process.
And so what if that article failed?
Which article?
The authorization for special meeting.
Then we'd have to go to court
To get the special meeting.
to get a special meeting.
Right.
So it
Means that you
saves a
want to
step.
spend more money.
It's a
That's what it means.
standard, well, it's been on the, anytime you have a union contract, it's there.
No, I understand it's there. I'm just in my mind trying to process if we want that to be one article for all three, or
It
if
is-
we want it separated by.
Right, but the way it's added, but the way that it is, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, but the way that it's worded is that it speaks to any of them that actually fail. But what you're saying is that if the whole article fails.
I think I need to, we don't have to have a decision on this tonight, but I feel like I just need to process that a little bit.
Doesn't having three separate ones then give you the possibility of one of them not passing?
Well, I'm trying to process if
keeps-
it would be the other way too.
Right, right. Bottom line is that if the taxpayers know that it'll cost them more money if it fails, it's not it's a cost saver to pass it. It's a possible higher cost if you don't pass it.
Right, no, I understand.
Okay.
If you want them broken out, you can certainly break them back out again. And our
No,
warrant will be.
we might want to see guidance on that. Just, I can see both.
I just don't have enough time right in this moment to process
We
that in
don't
my
have to
head,
process
just
it
something
now.
I think we should
So
think
we
about.
used to have guidance on our articles. Do you remember? And there was an issue about it, I don't know if it was the deliberative session last year or the year before. Guidance, you mean guidance as far as additional language on the warrant?
No, I'm saying guidance
In
as
the
far
warrant.
as whether we should be looking to break this out into
Okay,
three
well,
separate warrants.
that's where I was going, is that before we finalize this, it does go to legal for final review. And if they suggest that we should break them out, then we'll break them out and number them.
I agree, I think it's the right way, keeping them all together, because if, you're basically saying if any one of them fail, we can exercise this option.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But then my thinking is, God forbid that gets voted down,
Yeah.
And the others pass?
and the others don't pass.
Then you
Or
go
if one
to-
passes but one doesn't,
Then you're in court.
Yeah, then you just go to court.
Yeah, you just have to.
It's the one here that's authorizing, is to skip court.
It's
If
a
it
skip
fails,
court,
We're
yeah.
going to court, no ifs,
So-
ands, or
That's
buts.
the and/or language.
So, here's a question then. Let's say that one of these CBAs doesn't pass. We call a special meeting, which is
Just for that one.
just for that one, and it doesn't pass again. Is there, when the second special is there yet another, do we have to put, can there be a second special meeting, or are you just done till the next year?
I thought you were done till next year.
I think you end up at impasse and.
It's just a,
I don't know the answer to that. We've never had that
I've
happen.
never heard of two special
I don't
meetings.
know. Okay, well, we don't need an answer. I was just curious what happens when you get to that point.
I don't know.
Because if the voters didn't pass it once, the likelihood of them not passing it again is probably pretty high.
I would also recommend that if any of the board members have anything that they'd like to present to the board for a potential warrant article that they'd like to add, to forward that to me, and I can get it to Kathy.
I'm also looking for finalization of the withdrawal from SAU 55. I think I took that directly, I don't know if I took it out of the withdrawal planning or right out of the RSA, but, and in the box is just basically information about that. That's for FYI. That doesn't go on the ballot. I just put that there so that you could see it. but I'm also looking to take that out of the red and creating that, you know, if you are comfortable with that language. You want to run it by Sarah?
I can run it by Sarah, our legal counsel for the withdrawal. I think when it got put into the plan, though, it was based off of her. I mean, she reviewed the plan, but I'll run it by her.
It was based off the RSA.
Yeah, and I think she was the one that actually told me how to put it into the plan, but I'll check with her.
The other thing you were also going to talk about at some point was your capital reserve. There was some discussion about 250K at a couple meetings ago. And the board would need to make a decision about what to do there, because I think the rationale was you had spent down some of the capital reserve on the PAC wall, and you wanted to start building that back up again?
Well, I thought that there should be a separate warrant for additional monies. That's not, this capital reserve, this one at the top, is for any capital funds from the unassigned fund balance.
Supposed to
I
only
think-
use capital funds to put them back in there.
No, but I think we should have another warrant article to raise and appropriate.
Oh, a separate one?
Yes,
Not
yes.
from surplus?
Yeah, 'cause this
Yeah,
one
not
won't-
from surplus.
I see what you're saying, mm-hmm.
This one
You
won't.
went around that you,
Why wouldn't we just put that in the budget? Are you talking about taking it? No, not from
Because if the
surplus, you just-
default budget passes, you won't have any.
right, you won't have any money.
Oh, right. Okay, yes, that was the conversation we had. Thank you.
That would be a good one to run by legal, whether we can do that.
Well, that's how you.
What, capital
built
reserve
it.
fund? You can.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you can. There's,
There's lots of suggested
But the way this
language.
one's written, it can't come from
Well,
but this
just
one is,
operating funds.
there would be actually two suits. There would be this one that's currently on there, which is.
And then another one that would say, build up another reserve fund out of
Correct.
surplus, out of operating money. Yeah, gotcha.
no.
She's talking about raising.
I'm talking about
through taxation.
raising and appropriating 250,000 outside of any
Oh.
budget. Whereas this one right here, this one is only allowing you to put in up to 250,000 out of your unreserved, unassigned fund balance of any portion that is still in the capital portion of that.
Capital portion, right.
So I'm talking about, which, unlike probably some other boards.
So you would
we-
seed the fund, seed this new reserve fund by just straight taxpayer money, just.
It's not a
direct-
new, seed the existing fund. We
You
have,
can
we still
create-
have.
Right, you can create a new one if you wanted.
I don't know why I wouldn't create a new one. We depleted that money. So my suggestion would be a warrant article to raise and appropriate 250,000 to put into that school building construction fund.
So can we just go back to this article that's on here right now at the top of the page? I do think having that up to 250,000 is fine, because
that's
we
fine.
because we lately have not even had
We had
250.
16,000
Yeah,
last year.
so I
Yeah.
think putting that as 250,000
That's fine.
is totally fine.
Yeah.
Is that the will of the board? I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
You don't need it by consent?
That's a good question, yeah. So the same year, we want to increase capital by a couple $1 million. Right?
Yes,
You now want to go another 250.
yeah,
If you've got it.
because,
left over.
But that's only left over from the
Right.
surplus, Brian.
Right.
No, it's not. It's-
No.
It's
talking
additional.
about adding a warrant
Oh, you're talking
article.
about hers now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
thought you
am,
were talking
because-
So
about
you
the.
think
you know
that's
what?
gonna pass?
Right now,
With
that's-
all the-
I'm
with all the
thinking that
union?
your spread between your default is 72.4,
Yeah,
your proposed is 74.8.
yeah.
So I'm thinking that if the proposed doesn't pass, that you're not gonna have,
Right.
you're not gonna have it, and
What do you think of a warrant article that says if the proposal doesn't pass, then you have an article in there for improvement?
well, I think you could make that, should the default budget pass, you could have the warrant, you could have that warrant article and say this only occurs if the proposed doesn't pass.
It's
Why
not the
limit yourself?
default passing, it's the
Proposed,
proposed
it's the
failing.
proposed. If the proposed budget does not pass,
Fails.
this one,
This
this
arti-
one
Yeah, are you in
comes into
favor
effect.
of, well, and
Putting
we'll have
in
the
X
language in
amount.
there for the major improvements we want to do this year.
No.
No,
Because then if
No,
it goes
that
no, then you
doesn't-
can't
no.
do anything.
can't do
No,
any of
no,
those
no,
improvements.
if it
Even if you
fails,
have the money.
If it fails, the money doesn't go into the fund.
But if
And this fund is going into the capital reserve, which then would
Yes,
take the
yes.
subsequent year to pull it on out.
Yeah.
No, but to Brian's
Which
point, if
we've
you put the
talked about.
language in there and they voted no, then you can't do that work even if you have the
No,
money
no,
from somewhere
no,
else.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
You wouldn't be
no,
doing the work, 'cause
no.
it's
They're
going
saying
into
not putting in the
capital
work.
reserve
They're saying
fund.
not putting in the language for that, just
No,
the
Brian
capital
was, I
reserve.
know.
I-
Brian was
yeah.
asking.
He was.
You're not putting in the language for the work. You're putting in a, forget any budget. You're putting in a warrant to put $250,000 into the capital reserve fund.
And that's the only thing it can do is goes, if it gets approved, 250 goes
It-
into that fund. And
Straight up.
Straight into that
it's gonna
fund.
take another warrant article to pull it out.
Right, it doesn't mean nothing gets done, because we're not looking to do anything with that money, except put it in that fund to begin with.
That's right, because you need a vote to take
That's,
it out.
that's one issue. That's, the second issue, the point I was trying to make is, so Kim, if you were right, if all of a sudden the proposed budget fails,
Yeah.
and then by default, you get the default budget, maybe we should have a warrant article that says, make improvements. $2 million.
Oh, I see. You
So-
want,
so-
you
so
want,
someone
you
might
want
come
a
in and,
diff-
you know,
This would be an additional one, so now we'd have like potentially
Yeah, but what does
three.
no mean, what does no means no on that one?
So if that failed, you wouldn't have you're already in a default situation, and and they voted no about the extra 2 million. So that's another whole year without being able to, let's say, fix the windows at the high school.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, you
wouldn't
won't
have
have
the
the
money
money
anyway.
anyway. That's my point, is that if you go, what I'm trying to do is, because obviously the big difference is the capital.
2 million, yeah.
Between, so there are those who are gonna go into that voting booth. I'm not sure they're gonna look at it like what the difference
But it's the
is.
same.
My
That
la-
almost-
no, the language
It almost
is-
feels like an uninformed voter, I hate to say it, because if the
Wait,
difference is,
yeah?
if the difference is $2 million, so if you want to support putting $2 million in, then you shouldn't need that warrant article, you should just vote for the proposed budget.
Right, yeah, that's
Well,
true.
the thing is we're making,
Really?
we're making that amount to be equal to the spread between the two of them.
I'm
More
just-
logical thing would be is maybe half that, where $1 million or 500,000.
You want two shots at it, just call it what it is, right?
Right, yeah, I want as many shots as we can to get the facilities.
I'm telling you, a lot of people don't, well, Jen, all kidding
Right to the
aside.
point. You're right,
I
two
know,
shots.
All kidding aside, I don't want to say out loud that the percentage of people who I think are uninformed voters, even though, I've been doing this for a lot of years in different capacities for the town of Atkinson. And if you think that they're up all night going, I know exactly what I'm voting on.
My gut tells me if somebody is going to vote against the proposed budget,
Yeah.
you're not going to see them voting for a $2 million warrant article.
I don't know about that. I honestly don't
I
know
don't
about
know.
that.
I would think,
I think
I
if
would
you,
agree with Jen.
have you heard of anyone that says the buildings don't need work? They don't think it's going to
Yes, I have actually heard.
Well, it should be on this board to talk about why we need that 2
Yes,
million.
promote
and why
that
it would be in the
proposed
operating
budget.
budget, and why we want the support of the operating budget.
We did that last year, right?
It worked.
It worked. I'm not sure if it was all our doing, but
I still like my warrant article for 200, it's just a measly 250,000 to put into the capital reserve. I'm not disagreeing with what yours is, but, I don't
It's a
know.
different, yeah.
I guess we need to,
So what I would recommend is that we put 2 more warrant articles in here on
We have to think about this, is
topic.
all I'm saying. Just give
One
it-
would be the one that Kim's proposing, that we put the 250 for the capital reserve, that one. And then we put another one is relative to the language of if the operating budget should fail, then it's now asking. And then the dollar amount for this amount to be put into the capital portion of our budget.
Capital, facilities, and maintenance.
Correct.
Yeah, that'd be the
We'll put
certain lines.
$1 million right now is a placeholder in there, and then we as a board can negotiate that up or down.
Yeah,
at a future
something like
meeting.
that.
So you want up to, okay, if the operating budget fails, to
million.
raise and appropriate 2 or 1?
I would say one right now.
you
It's
already
a
have,
placeholder right
you already
now.
have a half a
$1
million
million.
dollars in the default budget.
Okay. It's good, good start.
Million and a half,
Half a million
yeah.
behind right
Million.
now per year.
A
Okay,
million.
$1 million.
million and a half.
I'm gonna put
Well, that's it.
All right, so.
That's a placeholder.
It's a
Okay, put
placeholder.
$1.5 million.
And
Until we get
I
the
don't think you're
language,
gonna get the
1 million
I'm
is
just,
fine.
I just would like some clarification on the language as for,
Oh, shoot, I
what's
was
the
leaving
purpose
it
of this?
It is going to,
For the purpose of, you have to provide a purpose.
I don't
And
know.
that's,
Building repairs, didn't you?
For what,
Building
for
repair
Kim's?
and maintenance.
No, not for mine, you don't need to.
Clear. The other
Yeah.
one is, yeah. for building
okay,
repairs.
and that's what
There you
we
go.
need to find out, what does that really mean? Can it be that bland? I
Oh,
don't
we
know.
probably have-
We
I
might,
don't
we
think
might have
so.
to be more
Specific
specific. We
things.
might have to be
I
more
don't think you can
specific.
do it that
I
bland.
honestly don't know that answer.
Right, and there's, I think DRE puts out a whole, I haven't read it yet, the whole manual on the types of warrant articles that you can have.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we could certainly run it by them.
Mm-hmm.
For the purpose of maintenance and repair,
Of facilities in the district.
for purpose of maintenance, repair,
Buildings,
district facilities, district buildings, facilities, infrastructure.
I think we gotta make sure that has in there, it's that the title of it is like, you know, for capital, because it's going to be raised differently than the normal operating budget, so we have to make that clear as well.
Yeah, raise and appropriate capital.
Appropriate as capital fund.
I think that if we're gonna put a warrant article like that on, that somebody should have a very, very good idea of what you're spending that $1 million on.
yeah, 6
'cause I am not-
windows, 33 doors. You
Yeah.
can do that.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
1,200
We'll go.
screws.
It's not a problem. We'll have it.
Brian's got
Science
it.
room cabinets, did we
We'll
ever
have
get
it. We'll
those
have it
done?
then.
Yeah. Science room cabinets,
What's with those
72
Everyone's
science room
okay with
cabinets.
that?
You'll have it. You'll have it,
Okay.
put it this way, you'll have it clearly by long before January 14th, or January 16th.
And when is our CIP meeting?
With me tonight, Brian.
I don't have any specific. I don't have that.
I'm still working on getting that set up.
All right, are we all done with warrant articles?
What about a water line article? We were gonna have, remember on our back burner was to have the town manager from Plastow come in and talk about hooking up this water line? That's still moving along. Are we gonna let that just go on by the doorstop step and not consider? Did we
Jeff-
decide
Jeff-
not, did you decide not to have him come in, or was he not
No,
available?
I don't know, is he available? I mean, we'll talk with him.
I know, we were gonna have him come in, I had that in my notes of him
invite
coming
him
and giving
to-
a presentation about the water line.
You could have a non-binding article on the warrant that talks about, just to kind of give you an idea as to whether or not the voters would support it for the following year. Because you wouldn't have enough time now to come up with the details for it. But in 1 year's time, Plastow may have more information and more exact costs associated with that. So you could put your feelers out there, or you could put it on your website as well if you wanted to, as far as would the voters, should the opportunity arise, would the voters support potable water versus,
I don't wanna miss out, I don't want that line to come right down the street
and it's,
and
it'd
go
be
right by
non-binding. Right.
the campus here.
And when are they looking to do that?
Next year,
Well, then-
As in 2020?
2021, which is what we're budgeting for,
You're
right?
saying it's, either way, it's gonna go right on this street?
No,
East Road.
it's gonna go down East Road.
Okay.
At least that's the latest I had heard. But if we want it brought over here, we might be able to
We have to pay for it.
persuade them to bring it over here instead of going straight down
Who's
East
them?
Road.
Who's them?
The water folks.
So you're looking,
H2O company.
I think we need to get them in here soon, because.
I think we should have a presentation. I at least explore that. Direct
could we do
somebody
that-
to speak to somebody to
You want
find
the
out.
town manager from Plastow, or, I mean, I don't,
No, it's
That's probably the place to
Plastow.
start,
Can we
finding
do-
out what they're doing.
can we do,
Plastow's water line.
yeah, he gave us a rough estimate, of like 2 million, right?
I can speak to it. Well, it was quite a bit. It was over $1 million, and my impression was that there wasn't so much of an appetite for it at this time. However,
What?
Wait.
well, at $1 million, they're talking about bringing it in from Danville Road, where the Cumberland Farms would be. All that said, I do have the engineer, the engineering firm who is working on the Plastow project.
Okay.
And I can make contact with them and ask them if they'd be able to come in and see if there are any other options or what those options would look like in terms of the actual,
I mean, Kathy's right, we
Location.
may be too early,
Right.
but we may be too late.
Maybe able to inform us to timing, the location, and cost, so.
12:05 or 12:19? When do you want
At 12:05.
Yeah, 12:05 is already
12:05.
pretty
them?
big.
So 12:19, take a shot?
No, I'd have him in earlier.
12:05?
I would have him in 12:05 because we may want to be looking to put a warrant to bring that.
At least we
You'll have
know. This
time.
way we're like,
To finalize your warrant until the last day in July and January.
We
Well,
can
like the
wait till the
January, like the
19th.
last Monday in
With
January, I
Jeff,
think it is.
Jeff,
Mhm.
did you-
Do we have
It's on
any
this
available
Is that a
dates?
real
That's
number?
on the
Conversation,
agenda?
too many going on here. What-
To go from Cumberland's to here,
Yes,
$1 million.
yes.
No, I don't know if that's just by the door or if that's door into the
You gotta rebuild
buildings.
the road, I guess, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know for sure.
And I think that our,
I don't think Jeff
our
knows.
draw on that as a potential sprinkler type building would certainly not allow us to go with a typical residential style water line.
Right.
But this would be potable water.
Yeah.
Take away a little bit of that
also
well
think that-
testing.
That this topic could be very long and lengthy. Maybe it would be advantageous to have its own separate meeting with the town manager, and maybe the water company can come in and both of them can.
I'd love to hear from the water company on it, and I will, if you recall earlier, I mentioned the PFOA testing. I would be remiss in saying that I know this is the reason behind it, but I do wonder if that testing and those limits have become more stringent in order to perhaps attract more grant funding for public systems,
For public water.
such as what we have coming in now. That could be an underlying
Well,
theme.
it could be, but a lot of times, having done a lot of water testing, the reason that it is, the limits are changed doesn't have to do with the fact that they now know it's more dangerous. It's that the analysis is to the point where you can actually accurately and precisely make the determination on the contaminant. So it's that.
Better testing.
They have better testing. That's what drives the level down a lot of times, not so much that they found it's worse.
And they were looking at additional or a higher level of testing, so, to your point.
The instrumentation gets better, and
Yeah.
then you can test at a lower level reliably.
Why
But-
wouldn't we want him to come in like on the 19th? Why wouldn't that be okay if he's available?
I was just thinking, it sounds like it's going to be a long topic with a lot of discussion, and could we just have its own separate hour-long or whatever blocked off? I don't know.
I don't know why we wouldn't, to me, it's an important enough topic just looking at, there's the draft agenda here, that I just feel like it should come in sooner and maybe decrease some of the time. The secondary school action plans on here for like 40 minutes or an assessment report. I don't know. I just feel like it's an important topic that we need to look at. Sue's right. You don't want to miss the boat on this.
Could we do it the week of the 9th, though? Just that topic?
We have to assume that they're available as well.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what the,
Well, some of these are just standard stuff. Second read on the program of study. Some of this should go right along if we use our time well.
We got
Well,
turn over a new
the
leaf?
only thing is the action plans things, that will be a big chunk of time.
And your assessment?
Can you drop that down a week? I'm sorry I brought it up, but I just don't want to be sitting here saying, hey,
glad you did bring it
we forgot about that.
yeah.
Right now with the topics that we have going on, we're starting from 7:10 to 10:35 on the,
Move some stuff.
so that's why it's being
Big-
presented to move it to the 19th. But maybe, how about I'll work with Kathy and Dr. Metzler to
See if we can.
revamp this. And it's all, this is contingent upon if the town manager and the water company can come in on the 5th.
Yeah, at least here, the town manager is very, very knowledgeable about this topic. He really knows what he's talking about. Yeah, the water company would be great, but we're buying the water from them, you know?
Well, it's more the engineering. We've spoken with the town manager on it. You're right, he is very knowledgeable on that. It's more a matter that we'd like to make sure that we're able to explore the most cost-efficient
Okay.
delivery.
Okay.
let's, The reason there's a draft agenda already in the chair's hands is primarily because next week is Thanksgiving.
Right.
And staff is limited. People will be out, and we wanted to make sure we were able to get the
Right.
packets and everything available for December 5th. So that's why that's that way, and there were certain items, if you didn't want, I mean, that's even, some of those are actually a stretch. We don't even know if we'll be able to get them together.
Right.
But we put them
Yeah.
on there because they were in the queue for the
Right.
next meeting.
I talked to Sean about that.
Oh, okay, so you already
The
know about
assessment
that.
one
Yeah,
already.
no, no.
And honestly,
Embargoed stuff, yeah.
this is obviously the month of December, there's concerts and choir rehearsals, and, I mean, there's a lot of things here, so to say, I understand Jen's point, but to say we could come out another night, and we've got SAU involved, there we got a night for that, and, I'd like to put it on a regular agenda.
All right, let's try to get it on the 5th.
He's got budget committee meetings, I have
Right.
meetings in Hampstead.
We got a CIP meeting we need to have.
I'd say, let's put it on the 5th.
5th and
bump
see if we
something
can-
else out,
see if we can
get
make it
somebody in
happen.
here.
You guys, if you want to move assessment, it's probably helpful. I mean, you can see the raw data you have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes into that. You have that in front of you tonight. There's a couple of embargoed sets that you don't have that we're hoping will be disembargoed. I can talk more about that in my administrator's report, so that's something you can probably move. I think some of those times, and Kathy and I talked, I think they're slightly conservative times. I think we all know that those numbers are probably bigger than the numbers that are on there.
I don't know, I can look at
Sometimes they
conservative and look
are.
at where we are supposed to be and where that is, they're not the same.
Well, I'm saying conservative the opposite way. I guess they're liberal. They're not conservative. I mean, it's gonna take, those are gonna take longer than they
All
say.
right, so we'll take this offline, but the goal will be to try to get them on the 5th.
Thank
So
you.
Jeff, can you call first thing in the morning and, okay.
Okay.
He's only there till like 11, Jeff, tomorrow. They don't work on Friday afternoons.
Okay, policies, first read.
I'll make a motion to accept policy BBF and JIBB for first read.
Motion's been made, is there a second? Seconded by Lee. Any discussion on these? If not, I'm gonna call the question if everybody's in a position to, a little. Oh, I'm sorry.
Does someone want to give me I know you guys talked about it just after I left last time. I didn't really catch it. What is the difference? From what I can see here, you're amending the old policy for the student liaison and shortening it and cleaning up the language. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, you're gonna have to,
I do not get a copy of that. We kept poking our head out when we had that meeting to see if you were here yet. It was, the old policy we had was from 2006, and the New Hampshire School Board Association had one that was much shorter, and so we looked to try and combine the two, but not lose some of the important items that we felt were in our original one.
I mean, just reading through it now, I'm satisfied with that.
Yeah.
An improvement from the old one.
The old one
having
was
some
really long.
Having some condescending language in it. The old one was a little. But yeah, this is definitely.
And it all fit on one page.
Yeah.
That was great.
Very
yeah.
convenient.
But it's definitely longer than what the New Hampshire School Board Association had for their recommended language, but we felt some points we didn't really want to lose were, I don't remember exactly what they were right off the top of my head.
There were quite a few. The, item 3, serving as the liaison between the students and the staff.
It was something about the input that you had, I can't remember which one
Yeah,
it was.
that's what I'm looking for right now. Oh, yeah, it is item 3. Serve as a liaison between students, district staff, and the board, and have their opinions considered during public discussions of agenda items, as well as in other meetings to which he or she has been invited to by the board chair and/or committee chair.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted
Sure.
a quick update on that.
Okay. So, can't recall, because we had a motion first and seconded. Any further discussion? Not call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. to our administrator reports.
Hey, Sean. At your stations, well, you requested raw data on some testing, and so at your stations, you have I think 3 or 4 stacks of raw data that you can take a look at. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have some embargoed testing results that we hope will be disembargoed soon.
Now, can you explain all this embargo and stuff? It just seems like, I would say, counterintuitive. I mean, it's like the assessments happen, the results are the results, so just make them public. I mean, I don't know why they do this.
That's the commissioner's prerogative, and that's what the commissioner has decided to do.
Okay.
And so we can't release it until he,
Which ones are not
I
available?
believe the Smarter Balance, and I believe AP.
Was it AP? I think it was AP. I think.
Testing and
Yeah.
Smarter Balance.
What about our SAT testing for the past couple of years?
We release when we have it. It's all posted online.
I'll ask, Sandy, thank you, Sandy that,
I don't know if the most
which is
recent posted
embargoed.
or-
I think
that-
maybe all of it's embargoed.
That may be embargoed as well, and a lot of times, so.
SAT, AP.
So I understand what you're saying, the results are the results, but I think a lot of times while it's embargoed, there are particular schools that may be contesting certain results. There could be errors that they're going through refining.
Analyze it.
They're analyzing it internal, it's not us analyzing it, other than to say, you've included students that are not here, or there's some errors in the reporting, or those sorts of things, but I would leave that up to the commissioner to decide, to tell people why I've worked with different commissioners, some disembargo it sooner than others for different reasons.
They take it every year.
Okay.
I'm asking specifically about the SAT because last time I looked, it was not,
Yeah, actually, it was shared.
on our website was not current.
Yeah, we typically present it as soon as we're allowed to, and then we've updated that. It was the 5-year history of the SAT results that are typically on the high school website, usually down the right-hand side, I think. They posted something recently. I don't know if it was SATs.
Yeah.
I think it was AP. I don't know if it was SAT.
The ACTs could be, there's quite a bit of data. I mean, the embargoed, you can expect a couple more stacks, I guess, of raw data.
Can we have this in electronic form?
There was all kinds of redactions that has to happen with that.
Yeah, we had to pull, it was so
That was
much work.
hundreds of hours worth of work to get that together for you
Yeah,
this
because
evening.
we had to pull out student data.
Identifying
And it's not
information.
easy, yeah. You think you could just like highlight and some
That
of
tied
you
up the office
cannot.
for the good part of 2 weeks, several people.
Me included. Just saying, it was a lot of work.
Okay.
Good, okay. You have a couple of executive summaries in your packets. An opportunity to have some meetings with the unions, and I believe there's an executive on the staffing update that you requested. Also in receipt of a letter from Superintendent Hutton out of SAU 83, and that's regarding the possibility of Fremont students attending Timberlane Regional High School. Would the board like to put that on the agenda for, a future agenda for discussion?
I don't think we can have a discussion unless we have some
I just said that's the letter.
answers to the questions. Is it,
No, those are questions for you to
Yes.
answer for them.
well,
Yeah.
so you want me to answer me personally to answer, does the high school have to? I mean,
Superintendent Hutton did, that's not for me.
So, I understand that it's.
Well, question 2 says, there's our question, would the school board be willing?
That's
So
right.
we need to discuss that.
That's why I brought it to you, because I can't answer those questions.
Put it on an agenda.
Without you having a discussion about it.
Right.
Not December 5th.
Are they gonna bring their own water?
They're looking for a reply no later than the 22nd.
Yeah, they want them tomorrow.
You see where we got it?
You'd reply to the letter, sure.
I didn't
They're
get a,
not looking to do this to FY '27, I don't know why they
No,
would
but
have.
they're putting together a study team,
The study committee.
and, a study committee, sorry, it's just a
And they
study.
want an answer tomorrow?
Well,
So your request is unreasonable within time frame.
I think
I
Say
think
that
that they thought they were sending the letter when they dated the letter, but they
Oh.
didn't. We got the letter on
Yesterday.
Tuesday,
Yeah,
maybe?
perhaps a reply asking them if they would still like us to consider it, because given that we received it on the 19th, we can't really respond by the 22nd.
Okay, so that, I could certainly do that. But the next question is, when would you?
Would you
Because
like
they're
to
not, it's not
please-
just gonna be an open question, they're gonna say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for their study committee?
After the election.
Oh, wow.
Wait,
In
wait, wait.
terms of we can't answer your questions due to the lateness of the arrival of your letter,
Yeah,
would
we
you
can
give
answer
us
the
an
questions, some of it's
extension?
just database, as
I
far as what costs are, but we can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that, but as far as, it's really, would the board entertain the idea?
Well,
Can I take a minute to read this letter?
Go ahead.
can I talk while you read it?
Sure.
Oh, good.
Wow, there you go, multitask.
Well, they're looking at, they're saying they have 45 students a year, so you'd be looking at adding 200 students over 4 years. So you've got to look at what the NEAS projections are for us for the next, but it doesn't even project out beyond 2026
no.
or so.
I mean, NASDAQ projection, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah, NASDAQ projections don't project, though we do know that we're not really increasing. The question, I guess the question I have is, what is the actual capacity of the high school supposed to be?
You know,
What
it's
it-
roughly 1,000 more students.
We can.
Well, I know we fit
Oh, not
1,000 more
1,000.
students.
Not 1,000 more in that building. Not 1,000.
Well, the district had 1,000 more
Yeah,
students,
that's
so.
the whole district.
But I'm just wondering, what is the capacity of the high school?
1,600 maybe?
And we're running, what, like 250 right now?
What?
High school? No. we
It's
run-
like
we're-
1,100.
Grade, do you mean?
it's about
Yeah, like
1,100.
250.
Grade, yeah. I
250 to
think
3.
Rebecca's class was almost 400 students.
Yeah.
She was 2013.
Yeah.
There has not been a class that.
Lily's class was
That was like the peak, I think.
291, 291.
And
2
this
years
So
year-
let's
ago.
say the total
Classes.
capacity is 1,600 students in the high school. We're at about 1,100 now,
Yeah. And you'd be looking at adding
adding
200.
a couple hundred, right, over.
And we're still
4
projected to
years.
go down. We're supposed to be down another, it was either 20 or 40 students next year in the high school.
Well, sounds to me like if we have the capacity, we don't have any problem with it.
And we,
Yeah.
and we'd take money from Fremont, or
Right.
where,
Well,
was
the
Fremont
whole
or
point,
Chester?
it could be
that
sticker
come?
shock for them too, and they could say, oh, gee,
Well,
that's
I
not an
know.
option.
Yeah.
So maybe we just, does your high school have the capacity?
Yes,
Yes, we do. Would your school board be willing to consider it?
yes.
I'd be willing to consider it. What's your current tuition? Somebody can get that. Are you willing to host a visit? That's not up to us. That's up to the superintendent. Are you willing to host a visit if the study committee wanted to come?
I don't see why not.
So that's a yes. Do you anticipate any changes in your curriculum? Well, obviously, there's changes in
Sure, there's
staffing all
always
the
curriculum
time.
staffing and changes in
I would just
curriculum
put no
annually.
major changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we have any.
Mr. Duffy, you have to
It's 3
explain
to
your
5
report to
years.
Fremont.
How many members are you gonna let them have on your board?
That's a good question.
0.
You'd have to have, yeah, they wouldn't have people on the board. They
They're
would be tuitioning in.
tuitioning kids in. Hampstead doesn't
You
have
have to
any.
look to see if your agreement would allow you to do
You'd
that.
have to, and I'm not sure our agreement, our
We have a
articles of
cooperative-
agreement
yeah,
would allow us
yeah.
to do that. That'd be
Articles of
interesting,
agreement.
To tuition students in?
from another town, and add them to our school board, and.
Well, not add them to the school board, though, if they're tuition, and we let students tuition in all the time.
Yeah, so that's why I said, no, we wouldn't add them to the school.
Because this is just for high school.
Yep,
Yeah, because they have K through 8 in Fremont.
one
They have a
building.
school.
More interesting is why are they leaving Sanborn?
I think they're probably just exploring options.
Okay.
Their contract expires, so they're
Yeah,
probably.
that was exploring options.
Maybe they think,
doing their due
so
diligence.
is it possible,
Investigating
that-
options.
did we just answer the questions? Can we get them a response?
Good job, Tim.
Thanks. Just get it off my mind.
Well, you asked me if I'd be willing to host a visit. I wanna know what kind of visit and what it entails and when is it, and I'm also, I got the high school staff to talk to. They just had a group there for a whole week disrupting the school, right? The S was great, but it turned the place upside down for a week, right? So I wanna know what the visit entails before I answer the question.
Well,
It looks
a
like-
site visit, I would say one, you can come one time.
Drive by.
One day.
Drive by.
With one person,
No,
and
they
you get a half hour.
they'd have a
Well, do you
study
want,
committee.
Mr. Duffy will give you a tour.
Dr. Metzler, are you looking for direction from us? Maybe the thing would be to, you know what our answers are, maybe it would be better to have a conversation with the superintendent and see what
Yeah, I
this
would
is
have
going to
expected a
entail.
phone call before I got a letter, but I didn't get that either, so.
I don't know how these
She must
things
not be
work.
from around here. I said she must not be from around here.
So it looks like a
Right.
template she
Gee,
sent out
right,
to a
I'm
number
not
of
sure.
schools,
Yeah.
not just, this, they're exploring
So
other
are you willing
options.
to do that, or you do you?
Yeah,
you
no, I'm just saying, that was just an editorial comment.
Okay,
The
so,
conversation probably should have already taken place.
Sure, come on over.
That's what I meant to say.
Right, right.
All right,
Put
so
on
that
a great
letter-
sushi
okay,
lunch.
This letter from Fremont is addressed now.
it's addressed.
Like me to answer the questions with your answers?
Yes.
Yes. In a professional manner.
I got some answers for your questions.
In question 4,
Any
you can
questions for
answer
me?
yes or no, depending on whether or not you're willing to do it based on the information.
Right.
I'm
Well,
not
my
answering.
answer may have some questions.
Yeah.
That's
fine.
So I have some questions for your answers.
That's fine.
Excellent. Okay, Senior Citizens Holiday Tea Invitation from the middle school, annual event. It will be held on December 7th. That's at 10 a.m. Never been. Love for you to go and check it out. It's a great event. See a lot of old friends, and it's some great music from our kids. Scholarship Fund. We are in receipt of a request to establish an Alex Smith Scholarship Fund, which will need the approval of the school board. Funds will be sent directly to the town of Plastow trustees of the trust fund. Public hearing will be held on December 5th, at the December 5th board meeting, for the purposes of accepting a lump sum of $23,000 to be deposited into the scholarship account. Looking for a motion to approve the establishment of this scholarship fund.
So moved.
In the honor of Alex Smith.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
It's great, thank you.
So we're having a public hearing at the next meeting. There's already a $23,000 donation that's gone through the GoFundMe page that will be deposited to the trustees of the trust fund in Plastow for that, but we have to accept the money, so that'll be, I've already put it in the newspaper, or it's in to go into the newspaper today, maybe.
And is it on the
But there's-
draft agenda?
It is on the
It's on
draft
the
agenda.
Okay, great. We have a student trip proposal. Let's see, middle school students are planning a trip to Quebec during April vacation. The trip has been vetted by the superintendent's leadership team, and the trip will not interfere with the school schedule. We're looking for board approval.
We get to a motion to approve the trip to Quebec for the middle school.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not? Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Thank you very much. The next item is regards to student achievement. 3 students from Timberlane High School, Hayden Bean, Jack Lowry, and Luke Ward, competed as a team in the International Cybersecurity Competition at UNH Durham in early November. UNH hosted a group of local teams. There were 88 high school teams competing worldwide at the same time. This 3-hour event was called Magic CTF, Capture the Flag. Capture the Flag is a common form of competition in cybersecurity events where students have to solve increasingly complex technical challenges for points over a limited period of time. Our students ranked number 1 in the state of New Hampshire and 13th out of 88 teams worldwide. Very impressive for students that have never done this before. They're eager to try their hand at another competition coming up in the spring. Congratulations to Hayden, Jack, and Luke. That's pretty awesome, so it was a great job. Final item I have, and I had a letter go around that came out from Kathy Deotis. This happened today. We had some ceiling leaks at Atkinson late yesterday afternoon, and that letter went out to families, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. Principal Deotis was on top of it, and as you can read in the letter, there weren't any disruptions, and they're in the process of taking care of that, so I wanted to let you know about that.
Maybe that's part of your $1 million right there.
I was gonna say. Was it? 2 years ago, the roof done?
Yeah.
The academy?
Mm-hmm. I think the roof twice, maybe.
What's going on here?
We need to find out where that is.
No,
if that's
they're
the same
investigating, I
spot.
just don't have an answer to that question.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it just happened
But
today.
this is the roof that wasn't, it's only a couple years old.
It might, well, no, I think that roof was over the newer kindergarten section. The first grade classrooms are those classrooms
Okay.
just before it,
Right.
right? Am I understanding?
More information should follow.
So it's not a new roof.
Okay.
They've done a couple roof things, I don't know. how close to
Yeah,
it.
they've done a couple.
Personnel report. Somebody see them?
Yes. I couldn't find mine.
There are no resignations to report, but we do have a nomination, professional, Danielle Studley. She's a high school math interventionist. And so I'd look for the board to support the hiring of Ms. Studley as our new math interventionist.
So moved. Second?
Second?
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Now I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Committee reports, and reports to the school board.
I asked about that.
Put it over here to the left.
The hearing on the withdrawal plan occurred at the Department of Education, or Board of Education's meeting today, which was up in Woodsville, New Hampshire. Big thank you to Karen Steele, who drove all the way up there to represent the withdrawal committee. Our attorney was also present. Hampstead's counsel was present. There were back and forth on questions, from what I was told, regarding liabilities and things, but the board passed the withdrawal plans with no caveat. So the withdrawal plan has been approved by the Board of Education.
Like they originally said they were going to.
Yeah, so it will be moved to the warrant as is, after we'd made those changes. So I assume that we will get something in writing from the Department of Education. I haven't been in contact with the attorney, but I will on the wording of the language to make sure that's correct for the warrant.
Yes, I want to give a big shout out to Karen and also, somebody went with her today?
Liz Costa went with her.
She drove her there.
Drove up. It was snowy up there.
Yeah,
She was
so
the chauffeur.
definitely commend the two of them. It was a big hike up there, so thank you very much for doing that. Okay. Anybody else? Committee reports? And Lee, policy, anything? Plans?
We had a meeting, a little mini CIP group here, facilities group. Facilities group. So we're trying to put some proposals together here so we can get into a bigger group here, so it's a big meeting, and we're working diligently trying to get a formal CIP meeting here so we can have something here.
Proposals together for, what was that?
Well, improvements probably at the high school.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Sue?
We have a wellness meeting on December 5th. I'll make sure Sheila's notified about that, but it's December 5th, that's already gone out, the notice has gone out. You heard CNA, the results of that meeting. I'm still trying to get a CIP meeting together, and I apologize for not coming to the safety meeting the other morning. That was my bad. I had, I don't know, it skipped my mind, and I have had a few things on my mind, but things are better now, so I'll be at the next safety meeting.
Nope, you saw the CNA work was pretty much what was presented tonight. That's what we've been working on, so.
So there was a safety meeting, I'm sorry. So I went in.
You were there.
You were there.
I was there.
Thank you for covering that.
Went
That's
in
gonna
there
be
and-
another action item.
Went in there and didn't really say much. Kristen and the rest of the team took care of the whole thing. I just sat there and occupied space. It was very, very nicely done.
Any updates out of that meeting?
Updates out of the safety meeting.
Be careful, because some of that is secure.
Thank you for stepping up for Brian on that.
Exciting.
Thank you for stepping in for me, Brian.
That's quite all right.
Okay, well, that's gonna, for the, payroll registries where it's gone through. The other business that we wanna bring up is this issue that came on up this week as regards to the wellness committee, is they meet during the day, correct me if I'm wrong if I misspeak here, probably about 10 to 11 o'clock.
Who, what time?
No,
Who?
that's the safety committee.
The safety meets in the morning. Facilities, the big committee meets in the morning. Wellness meets late afternoon, and curriculum and assessment meet late afternoon.
Okay, well, what we did is, I knew that Sheila couldn't make it for that day, but I didn't know that there was a policy that you have to have 2 board members present for the meeting to even take place. And I felt that we should not hold the committee with the requirement in our policies that we have to have 2 board members present for them to even meet. So I wanted to bring it back here to discuss and possibly wordsmith it a little bit more,
I think it's worth,
so that we can,
I think it's worth discussing. I know why that policy was put in place. The board at that time wanted to be part of, and I'll use my fingers here, part of the work. But we don't want to be holding up the work, because we attend those meetings, the work has been done. We are hearing reports of all the work they've done. The 12 people in the room, 2 of us happen to be school board members, but the other 10 are giving us information. And then we bring it back and tell the board about it, or help. But having both of us have to be there, I think that should be modified. I'd like it to be that there'd be 1 school board member there and 1 person from SLT to hold a meeting, but not hold up the work. That's my point of view on that.
No, I agree. Sue and I had some offline comments back and forth, email exchanges on this topic. Jen?
The only one that I would question that about would be policy, because policy is really the work of the board, too.
So if you go to a meeting, Jen, and Lee can't get there in time, and it's only you would cancel a meeting?
No, I just think the expectation for policy, because that is the large part of the school board responsibility, is that we should
Right,
have.
But
That's the
Sue's
point.
whole point is so you can meet. You can
Have
get
a
down to
meeting.
One person.
And understand Lee's on his way, whatever. But to say, oh, we can't, because Lee's not here, it's gonna break policy. There should be 2 of us there.
No,
It
I
helps.
Totally agree with that, because I know when I basically just sort of indirectly got an inherited part of policy. It was basically to be both of Jen and
Backup.
Lee's backup. And I did not know that, if one of us didn't show on up, you couldn't have this meeting. I always thought it's sort of a committee and a quorum and so forth, that would be it. It's not
No, it's-
specific to having a particular pedigree of a school board member to be present.
But it was also to protect what gets brought to the board. What I inherited was a board that would be shocked at what was being brought to them in terms of curriculum, because curriculum and assessment meetings were held with no board members.
Right.
Because the board members didn't show up. So we wanted to make sure that the board was part of what was coming to the board, so that the board kind of had an idea what was going on, so this wasn't like because what was happening is stuff would get brought to the board, and they'd be like, whoa, we're not doing that. And so it was like a ton of time wasted, and so we got to a point where we said, well, let's make sure we're equally represented at least, and let's have a couple of voices so that nobody's being outvoted or nothing's being forced anywhere.
I agree.
I know we can always change at the board, but time is precious. We're understaffed. We're trying to make sure that we don't waste time, and also, like I said, I don't want you to be like shocked. The other part too was that was when the SLT kind of was put together, primarily to vet presentations, again, so that the board wasn't tremendously disappointed when presentations were coming to the board and they weren't presentation quality, or they weren't kind of what you were looking for, so we put that system kind of in place. So I know it's hard. We talked a little bit, I talked a little bit with CNA about having the opportunity for the other board member to call in. Like, so you got one board member sitting in the room, why can't the other board member call and listen in and then weigh in on, because we needed, then you had to call like special, you had to get together special to get the
We had a
vote for the
special
board,
meeting.
for the
Meeting today.
program of studies, because the vote wasn't taken.
We got
I said, I can't bring a
behind.
program of studies to the board that there wasn't a vote from CNA on. So they had to have a second meeting, but the calling in's another option too, so that you have more people participating.
Well, it's also a function of the time. I mean, there's only a couple people on this
There's
board.
only so many hours
that
in the
has
day.
the
Right.
flexibility of, midday meetings.
Yeah, they don't have to be midday. They can
And
be
I feel strongly asking the majority of the people that are doing the work to stay here on another night at 7 o'clock at night to just accommodate me and Sarah, who's just gonna sit there and listen. So that's why we made it late in the day. The end of their day it works out okay for us. I know for some of you can't be here at 4.
It's workable, but yeah.
But we've changed that meeting time 2 or 3 times to accommodate people. We try to make it so we can have everybody here.
Well, why don't we just send this to policy?
I'd like it to be considered that it'd be 1 member and an option for
Let's do
phone
one
in.
and one.
One and one and an option to phone in. We certainly want, I mean, we've got a list of people. I didn't know that, had I known Sheila was ill, I would have rearranged my morning, because I figured, well, Sheila will be here, and I knew Chris, well, you know, and to put Brian have to come from home to do it.
No, it was a last minute thing that she just did, and I just, you know, I'll take the, you know, the.
I didn't know about it. Yeah,
She
so-
contacted me, I also didn't think that it was gonna be an issue because,
Right.
you know, I didn't know that this policy had requirements that two had to be there, and the two were, and we knew one of them couldn't be there, so, you know, great that Brian was able to get in contact and rearrange his schedule and came in.
So send it back to policy, but
So,
consider
yes,
those
can we-
ideas.
Send this back to the policy committee and have them do some potential wordsmithing, recommendations on it.
Believe it or not, it's helpful for SLT too, because we're, again, short staff, right? We don't have a lot of people, so we only have to have one SLT person there.
Right, it would,
That's helpful too.
but having no one there, having no school board members there, I do not support.
No, I
You
don't either.
need to be here.
It's a board committee.
It's a, yeah, it's
How
a,
can you have, how can we have a meeting with a
Without a
board
board-
committee with no board members there? It doesn't make any sense.
I agree with that. Okay. All right, is there any other business to become before the board? Okay, we have a couple of non-publics that we have to deal with. And one of them is a RS 91A:3, paragraph 2, subsection I in regards to security. And then the other one was the one that.
That's a personnel issue, it's reputation, and the reason it's not on there, it really was
It just happened, and I know that, that's why I wanted to just do them all at one point, which is at the end of the meeting. So I'm gonna need a motion to go into non-public?
I'll make a motion to enter non-public under 91A:3, paragraph 2, section
I and C.
I and C.
Okay. Motion has been made, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lee. Roll call vote, Mrs. Pelcher?
Mr. Boyle?
By Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yep.
Mrs. Mockamer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
You are in at 10:23.
Okay. Then,
are we
for
coming
Dean,
back?